EAGLES. Eagles.
Friday Eve, people. Yes, Friday Eve. Welcome on in. Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. D-Gun, R. Ellis, hanging out with you. What's up, Crowley? What's up, Little Richard? Hungry. What's up, Brandon Sweenbolt? Peter, Mr. Taz, M. Reyes. If I missed anybody, jump back in and I'll say hi. Tina, what's up, girl? I hope everybody's doing well. Gunner, how you doing, my man?
It's Thursday. It's a beautiful day outside, except the landscaper's out there. So if you hear extraneous noise, and I always tell my daughter and son-in-law, look, every Wednesday night, get all the dog toys out of the yard case so this dude doesn't chop them up with this big riding mower he had. They left them out there. So if they chop them up, hey, what the heck? That's their problem, not mine.
I got you. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Sween Bowl, I got you, man. All good. Good to be hanging with you. Phillies big win. Yes, it was. D-Gun, you called me on the carpet. I gave you a prediction yesterday.
You know what? I'm proud of you. You know, as shaky as the pitching has been, as shaking as Nola has been, especially when it comes to playing the Braves, you emphatically looked me in the eye and said, yes, they will win.
Yes.
But I have to ask you, when it went from 4-0 to 4-0, were you as confident in your prediction?
No, I was not. I was waiting for the D-Gun text, in fact. After, if you didn't see the way the game ended, I get a lot of folks were at work and busy or whatever, but we actually ended right in time to kind of catch it yesterday. But if you didn't see it, so it's 4-4, bottom of the ninth, one out, runner on third, and Arcia hits a foul pop midway between first base and right field. Yeah. So Nick Castellanos' momentum is taking him towards the stands. Now, most of the time, the right move is let it drop because you're not going to be able to throw him out. And Luke Williams actually has good speed. He's a former Philly. He can run. So he decides to catch it. He spins and throws an absolute seed, one hop to Garrett Stubbs, who applies the tag, and they get the out. It was a brilliant play. It really was. It was an unbelievable play.
I can't believe the runner took off from third and tried to score, even because of where the depth of where the pop foul was. Even though he has good speed, I understand they're trying to end the game there, but you took yourself out of the inning.
Yeah,
basically.
Yep.
And even Rob Thompson said we're all in the dugout going, let it drop.
I heard Stubbs is going like no at the home plate, and then he had to get ready for the throw. It was crazy. And then look, to their credit, they got two, which was huge, instead of just one the next inning, because then Atlanta in the bottom of the 10th got one, and the Phillies survived. It really had a playoff feel kind of game to it. It really did. It was a lot of tense moments, back and forth, et cetera. Pretty good stuff.
The one thing I've learned, and the Braves won the season series 8-5. The one thing I learned is that both of these teams can hit each other's pitching.
Yeah.
And these are going to be some softball type scores. These are not going to be low scoring games.
Yeah.
And later in the show, when we get into a little bit more about this game yesterday, I found some interesting stats about the Braves pitchers. We talked about how dominant the Braves pitching has been for them this year. That might be a little bit misleading, Robert. I'm going to tell you.
I like this. Okay. All right. We'll dive into the Phillies in a little bit, but I'm game for any of that kind of talk, D-Gun. All right. That's good. So we had that Eagles back. I blew it here. Countdown. I have a countdown for you. You ready?
Yeah, I was like, something's been missing in my daily dose of Rob Ellis.
Yes.
I don't know what it is.
I got it for you. You ready?
Yeah. What is it?
We are 103 hours and 5 minutes and 20 seconds away from kickoff. 103 hours, 5 minutes, 10 seconds away from kickoff, Derek Gunn. You're welcome. I know you needed it. I got it for you. I took care of you. I did some math today. I got my fingers and my toes out. I got the abacus out. I got it done for you. All right, so we're good.
Once again, it tells me that for a man who works a lot like you, you have too much free time.
Oh, I didn't want to get into what I was doing all day today, man. It was not fun. Not fun.
No.
Oh, I spent the morning. I got up early and I worked late, got up early, prepped. I spent 2 hours in the bank with nonsense, with fraudulent, claims and all kinds of BS happening to my account. It wasn't fun. It was not fun. Yes, Joe, I did get it. Got the hairs cut yesterday after the Phillies game.
We've all been there with bank issues, but I will say that my bank, PNC Bank, that we've been with since the late 80s when we were still in Pittsburgh, is very meticulous in terms of when you submit a fraud request, they are on top of it like a SWAT team. If they see anything in your account that looks irregular, they give you notifications saying, "Can you verify this?" Boom. They're very good about that. And that's the reason why even when we came here and found out that PNC was here, we did not switch. And it's been true to form. They have been consistent. And if something is missing from your account, after their thorough investigation in a short amount of time, they will put the money back in your account. Or if somebody charges something that shouldn't, say, "Hey, look, you need to stop this." Right. They are very diligent about stopping things and getting your money back into your account. Okay,
that's good to know. Yeah, I will say this. I haven't been necessarily pleased with some of the customer service at my bank. So there may be a change coming. We'll just leave it at that. There could be a change coming quite soon. So anyway, so that's anybody who's been through it can relate. It sucks. It ain't fun. But anyway, enough of that. All right, so we are getting closer, Derek. Now, I think you're hearing good news on Bradbury. Is that correct? That he could be going?
As I've heard as of last night, he's fine. That's all I was told, is he's fine. It doesn't mean he's cleared concussion protocol, but it means he's out there at least practicing. And he's had an extended time off. He got injured last Thursday.
Right.
And usually, even when a player gets injured on a Sunday, unless it's something extremely severe, by Thursday or Friday the following week, they're cleared and good to go for the following game.
Right.
Haven't seen anything. I don't know if you have. I haven't seen anything that says
nothing.
Bradbury's cleared and good to go. But, I'm told he's fine. So I'm going on that as of right now.
Yep. Haven't heard anything official on him. So we're just waiting to find. Obviously, that's a big one. Blankenship coming back would be a big one. We know they're going to be without Nakobe Dean, but you don't want to be in the same spot you were in last Thursday night, Derek, where it's just a bunch of young guys, other than Slay. It's a bunch of young guys running around in the secondary. The good news is you had Cunningham stepped up at the linebacker spot. I thought he played very well. That's a good thing. The other good thing is you are going to have younger guys playing on Monday, but at least you will have more time for these guys to kind of get used to what they need to do for their roles, what they're going to be asked to do, et cetera. So that should be good news. At least a little bit more time to prep.
Yeah. Everything is in this team's favor right now in terms of you're 2-0. You have a lot of things to clean up on both sides of the football. Bodies that fell by the wayside. And, you're right. I misspoke. Bradbury got hurt week
Sunday against the Patriots. Yeah.
So
it'll be 3 weeks in a day.
Yeah. I appreciate the clarity. Yeah.
Or 2 weeks in a day.
So he's had more than enough time to get ready.
Yeah.
You have a lot of time to do some soul searching. And your next opponent is not really one of the so-called heavyweights in the NFL or the NFC for that matter.
Right.
Luckily you're not facing Dallas or San Francisco with all these question marks coming up. Mm-hmm. You're facing a Tampa Bay team that you cannot overlook.
Yeah.
With Baker Mayfield, who's playing extremely well. But until further notice, Tampa Bay is not considered a juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination. So everything is stacking up in the Eagles' favor to go down to Tampa and answer a lot of questions in front of a national audience.
Yeah, I mean, what we don't know right now when it comes to Tampa is, listen, winning in Minnesota week 1 on the road is a good win, in my opinion. I know Minnesota's 0-2, but I think that's a good win for a team that we didn't have high expectations for.
Right.
I take nothing away from the fact that they beat the Bears last week. The Bears are a disaster. The Bears should have
oh my goodness,
like a chalk line around them and the yellow caution tape. They're we'll get into them later. What a day they had yesterday. So that to me, I don't know. I know the Bucs are playing better than we expected, and Baker is doing a good job not turning it over and all those things, taking nothing away from him. But that win last week, I mean, the Bears might be the most dysfunctional team in football right now. I mean, hands down.
I don't like to see anybody go through this, but there was so much speculation, and that's why you have to be careful of what you report. And I'll share with you what I found out, because I have a friend who works for the Bears, and I've been texting back and forth with them. You got to be careful what you put out there a lot of times, because the initial report, made it seem like, wow, if this is true, what an embarrassing situation for the Chicago Bears. Then you find out maybe some of the stuff that you heard initially is not true. So you got a head coach who hired this guy, and now this guy walks away, and all this stuff starts coming out. You're 0-2. Your quarterback is being critiqued as somebody who's not shown signs of improvement.
Yep.
And it doesn't look like it's going to get any better for this team anytime soon.
Yeah.
That you're right. That is what you call a professional mess.
Yeah. So just for what it's worth, Ryan Poles, who's the Bears GM today, denies that there was a raid on Hallis Hall. But he wouldn't really give much clarity on the defensive coordinator stepping down. They've been extremely mum on this, Derek. Like, they put a statement out that he's leaving, but I don't think there's some unhappiness there. There's something I think that's going to come out at some point. That usually does. We'll see what happens. But nonetheless, they had a day yesterday. We'll get into some of the other stuff that Justin Fields had to say and then walk back. And, again, it makes you, as much as A.J. Brown had a little dust up on the sidelines, the Eagles don't have any of this kind of nonsense. No,
and hopefully what the brain trust is putting out there is true. Because, Rob, as we know, if there's something more, there's enough people that would, whether it's locally in Chicago or nationally,
right?
Everybody has a source somewhere. And if it comes out, you're talking about a state of embarrassment. If it comes out, it's otherwise. If it's something other than what the Bears organization is saying, man, and you still got to navigate an entire season.
Yeah. Enjoy. Yeah. Good luck with that. That's for sure. It's going to be a mess there, but yeah. So we're inching closer to this Eagles game. And the Monday night it's good for the team, bad for the fans, because you want your team to play on Sunday. The less you have to wait, the better. We all know that, but yeah, I mean, getting some of those guys back is going to be huge. If Blankenship comes back from the ribs, if Kenneth Gainwell comes back from the ribs. I mean, I just think about the options you have at running back if Gainwell's healthy with all four guys. I wonder who would see. I think Swift would start. I think Gainwell would get touches.
Yep. I think Penny would be the odd man out.
So I was going to say, who's the inactive one? Penny again, probably.
Yeah, I think Penny would be the odd man out, because we also remember Boston Scott's in concussion protocol also.
That's right. He left the game.
Yep. He's the return guy. So Scott would be up before Penny.
That's right.
I still don't understand this Penny situation. I really don't, but obviously there's something. I always thought Boston Scott would be fourth on the depth chart, but it's quite obvious that Penny has slipped down to number 4 on the depth chart, which means there's no guarantee he could finish the season with this team, depending on what they think of him,
And his money's non-guaranteed.
No. The thing is, though, once you make the 53, you're automatically guaranteed your salary for that season.
Right.
But he has no guaranteed money, upfront money beyond that. So, that's – and Howie does not like to eat, cap money unless he absolutely has to. So if they decide to part ways with Penny and bring in another running back, that tells you exactly what they thought of him in terms of how he deteriorated from training camp up until this point of a season.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's still a young man. I know he's had a lot of injuries. It seems like they never. I mean, he was playing late in preseason games.
Yeah,
which is not a good sign for a veteran.
Well, in his case, who else were you going to play? I mean,
I know, and he needs reps. He also needs reps bad.
But you're right. Him playing that late into a game in the preseason was a little eye-opening, because you still had a couple guys just trying to get film out there.
Yeah.
To catch on with another team. Have the injuries taken that much of a toll on him to the point where he's not all the way back to what he was? And obviously the team never openly admitted it. Nobody in the media has come out and addressed that issue as well. But I just thought for sure, at the very worst, at the very worst, he would be the number 2 back in his offense.
I wonder, I don't know. I mean, I think it's food for thought, right? For sure with what's happening with him, but I wouldn't be in any rush to get rid of Rashad Penny. I just, you see what's sort of left out there, man. It isn't great. So I think I prefer that he's here. Let me put it to you that way.
I agree. Just as an insurance policy, no question about that. His money is already under the cap, and obviously it's not straining their cap in case they have to do something else. I would keep him for an insurance policy as long as he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see a report saying, Eagles waive him with, put him on IR with, they pay him off when they get rid of him.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think he does have some value, especially in short yardage situations. Strong lower leg drive, running back. Doesn't seem to have that breakaway, especially the way the Eagles are running the ball against Minnesota. He doesn't appear to have that breakaway. It's like 3 yards and 4 or 5 if you're lucky.
Yeah, he's not a burst guy.
Not anymore. No.
No.
And again, I go back to, I don't know if the injuries have taken a toll and caught up to him yet, but I definitely would try to keep him as an insurance policy compared to what you would be looking for in the open market.
Yeah, no question. I mean, look, the one thing is, I would say Swift is sort of medium, but the other 2 guys are small. I would still want a guy around with a little bit of size, like he has. That's for sure. But yeah, it is interesting. JM brings up a good point. I was surprised by this yesterday as well, and we talked about it. I can't believe Kareem Hunt got $4 million. Like, I was expecting 1.5, 2. But for a guy who sat it out, wrote it out, it paid off for him, but for sure. But I don't see anybody else getting anywhere near that kind of money, like a Leonard Fournette or somebody else who's still out there. No chance.
Well, I mentioned on the show when we talked about the prospects, he was at the top of my list to go back to Cleveland because he knew that system well.
Yeah. And
obviously he was sitting out waiting for the best possible offer. I believe Cleveland was so desperate that they had to up the ante a little bit. If I'm Kareem Hunt, first thing I'm thinking is, okay, well, how bad do you want me here? I really don't have to come back here, which is a little bit interesting considering Kareem's never made that big money,
Right.
But Kareem held the cards. Cleveland was desperate. They could have approached Leonard Fournette. They could have approached some other backs. But like I said the other day when we discussed this, he is the first candidate up because he knows that system. He knows how the Browns do things. He knows that offensive line. He knows the zone running scheme that they have. He's the perfect fit to bring back in there. And lo and behold, that's exactly what they did. But you're right, giving him $4 million, I was a little surprised by that. But that just goes to show you how desperate Cleveland was to get somebody who can help pick up that slack lost by Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I agree with you. So give me your overall sense here, Derek. As I mentioned, I gave you the countdown, how far away we are, et cetera. But what is your sense of this team right now? Is it just you can't really come to any kind of conclusions this early? You're seeing things that you expected. What are things that surprised you? Where are you Eagles-wise right now?
Defensively, they're playing as expected. When you have a plethora of new coaches and new young talent to integrate, as well as new veteran talent, you don't hit the ground running because you don't get enough great game reps together as a collective started unit to form some type of cohesiveness. I'm a little surprised. I say surprised, but not concerned about the Eagles offense. We talked about this going into the season. Coordinators have had all this time to sit back and dissect this Eagles offense to see what they could take away, how they could gamble and try to attack. And we've seen it twice now in a span of 4 days. And so I'm basing it on what AJ said. We're seeing looks that we didn't expect. And when the ball is snapped, what we think is not. So now they know they're going to see a little bit more of that. So during this time off, this extended time off, if I'm Sirianni and Brian Johnson, I'm talking to my receivers. All right, if you see this and all of a sudden it drops into this, then you break off your route this way or that way. Right. Or you do this, you and your quarterback should be able to make eye contact and realize that you've altered your pattern. From a running perspective, if they give you this front and all of a sudden they drop out, this is what you do to counter that. These are things that happen in a fraction of a second, but those are everyday common occurrences for an offense adjusting on the fly at the snap of a ball. You have to be in sync, So they got a wake up call the first two games in terms of how teams are trying to attack them. Now they've had a chance to digest and study. Now, Todd Bowles likes to do things a little bit different. He loves that Tampa 2 defense, with the 2 high safeties. He's not going to come out of that much. But the games that they play underneath, it may take the Eagles a series or 2 to figure it out. Mm-hmm. But they better figure it out sooner rather than later. And don't allow Tampa Bay to hang around at the end, especially in their ballpark.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, to me, the 11 days is the key to this thing. I think there's like the first game of the year, it's a feeling out process. You don't have much preseason. It's Bill Belichick, understandable. What's up, Fitness Rebel? All those kind of things are understandable. Week 2, it's a 4-day turnaround. You're back on the field right away. You're banged up. There's a lot going on with that for both teams. I can put all that aside. What I can't put aside is if the passing offense looks the same way this week. That to me is a worrisome sign. It's not panic, but it's getting really close to being majorly concerned, because it'll tell me the coaches can't figure out how to adjust. The quarterback really is in his own head a little bit here. And there'll be a plethora of other things, including the offensive line, pass blocking, which we'll get into in a little bit, and all those things. But if it looks this way again, with this much time where it's almost like a mini bye, that's a bad sign for this team.
If the passing game looks anything near like it did the first 2 games, then I will go from surprise to now concern. If this was a short week type game in the 3rd game of the season, okay, you're saying, okay, you didn't have a lot of time to turn it around. You're dealing with this, you're dealing with that, injury, so on and so forth. But now you've had that extended breather to catch your breath, to regroup, to reanalyze how your first 15 scripted plays, whatever the case may be. The passing game cannot look anything like what it did the first 2 games.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give Brian Johnson credit. They adjusted on the fly and they pounded it down Minnesota's throat once Minnesota decided they weren't coming out of that shell that they were playing, dropping 7, 8 guys into coverage. Mm-hmm. And the Eagles just chewed them up in the run game. That could happen again Monday night. They may have to pound it down Tampa Bay's throat to keep Tampa's offense off the field and to wear Tampa Bay's defense down. So we got to see how the game flows. If Tampa Bay is flooding the zones with more people back in coverage, then we have to give them a little bit of leeway again, because they did what they needed to do to win a game. If they come out of this game 3-0 and it's more running again compared to passing, then it's not really a fair assessment, is it, of what the passing game should be?
Right. No, I'm with you in the sense that, look, you got in game, you got to do what you got to do. And they did it last week. They adjusted. We saw them do a bunch of time. The myth is they didn't do this last year. They absolutely did it last year. They did it in a bunch of games where they ran the ball. They milk clock, the Phoenix or the Arizona game, the Houston game, the Indianapolis game, all those games, the run game took over. So I'm okay with that, but I want to see them be able to take shots and keep the defense honest. Like, my guess is Tampa loads the box in this game. Yeah. And they're going to say, or maybe they take the approach that the teams took the first 2 weeks, where we're not going to let you run or throw, down the field.
Yeah.
If you're going to beat us through the run, you're going to beat us through the run. I don't know. I mean, Todd Bowles is a really adept defensive mind.
Yes.
That much I know. And he's going to take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, what Belichick did, what Flores did, what he thinks. And it's going to be interesting to see the way they attack and what they try and take away early, because the Eagles did. 270, what was it? 257 yards or whatever. You can't sneeze at. It's a lot of yards.
There's one thing I expect to see Tampa do that I'd be surprised if they didn't, is that if their edge rushers emulate what both New England and Minnesota did, rush to a certain point, hold your ground, and keep Jalen in a corral, and don't let him dip to the outside. I would be surprised if Tampa Bay didn't try at least that aspect of their scheme in terms of trying to defend Jalen. In terms of what kind of games they're going to play, because Todd Bowles likes to blitz also. Mm-hmm. Are they going to blitz? And if so, can Jalen find the hot read quick enough to get rid of the ball? Are we going to be talking about, again, him missing wide open receivers? Will Tampa Bay be able to force turnovers with whatever scheme they come up with? Those are the little nuances we're going to have to look for in terms of, point counterpoint in this matchup Monday night between this Eagles offense and Tampa Bay's defense.
All right, let's come back and we're going to dive into what you think the bigger concern is, the issues with the passing game or the injuries on the defensive side. We'll delve into both of those things when we get back. Don't go anywhere. That's Dark On. By the way, 1:30, we'll have Eastern University head football coach Billy Crocker joins us. They played their third game of the season this past week, Gunner, and we will talk to the coach not only about his squad, get his thoughts on the Eagles as well. We'll do all those things when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take. All right, let's talk about Bravo Pizza of Havertown. Yes, it's that time, right? 12:30-ish. Got the hunger pains. I know. I'm with you. Bravo Pizza of Havertown is the best. They've been family-owned since 1985. You got Alex and his great crew. They're there 7 days a week, just putting together the most fresh and amazing food each and every day. They have 20 different styles of pizza. They have slices to go. I get the grandma upside down style, which I think is phenomenal. But any way you want it, they'll make it. They have specialized pizza your way. If you're not up for pizza, they have fresh pasta, sandwiches, wraps, wings, salads, you name it. The other great thing is Bravo Pizza of Havertown is all about the community. They have fundraisers for charities, for schools, for little leagues, where the proceeds go to those organizations. Team Foster last week to help servicemen connect with support dogs. And it's just a great, great cause. You can follow them at the Bravo Pizza of on Instagram and Facebook for daily specials and promotions. They're located at 1305 Westchester Pike in the Manoa Shopping Center in Havertown. 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center in Havertown. Give them a call, 610-446-3810. 610-446-3810. Bravo Pizza of Havertown.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru. Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back, everybody. Rob Ellis, Derek Gunn, hanging out with you Thursday. We got a game tonight, D-Gun. Banged up Giants, man. No Saquon. They got other problems, too. Andrew Thomas, their left tackle, also not playing. That is not a good sign when you're going to San Francisco against the Niners, for sure.
This could be like the Alamo tonight. Now, I have to watch because you got to watch this 49ers defense and got to watch all of their plays of misdirection, all their motion. Got to watch because everybody wants to see the 49ers and analyze the 49ers. But I expect this game could be over by halftime, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Vegas thinks the same way. The line is the 49ers minus 10.5.
Only 10.5? I thought it'd be bigger than that.
Yeah, well,
and
the other thing is it's always harder on the road team on the Thursday night games too.
Yes, especially when you go. Well, they didn't have to go cross country because
they stayed. You're right. They went from Phoenix to
to San Jose to work out, and then obviously down to Santa Clara where the 49ers now play. Yeah. But still, you got to go into a Lions den, and you're less than 100%. Look, trying to come back against the 49ers compared to Arizona the way you did, that's light years different. So I expect Christian McCaffrey to have a big game because I'm surprised the Giants' defense has been as porous as it has the first couple of games. So I expect McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk to have big games against the Giants, unless somehow, some way, by a miracle, the Giants shock the world and can go toe-to-toe with this team and lose gracefully.
I'll tell you who they're unhappy with up there. Would New York be up there?
Yeah, they're above us. Yeah.
Yeah. Kayvon Thibodeau. They're not.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't. I think it's a little early, to be pushing any kind of panic buttons on him. But, it's like he's a guy who will do some talking. And there hasn't been he's been banged up too a little bit his rookie year, but there hasn't been the return for what you thought he was going to be with where you took him and for some of this stuff that he, for the talking that he does.
No, and especially in a Wink Martindale defense, I expected him to be more of a force coming off the edge, and that hasn't been the case for whatever reason. Especially when you're drafted as high as he is. But, there are a lot of times, some rookies like a Bijan Robinson come out of the gate and just flourish, hitting the ground and running. Right. And some other first-round picks, take a little bit longer to get going. Aiden Hutchinson came out of the gate hitting the ground running. Right. You look at Bryce Young. Bryce Young is not even close to what, people anticipated the first overall pick in the NFL draft being. And again, he's a quarterback. He's got to learn. Yeah. He's already nicked up. He hasn't played. Bryce hasn't even practiced this week yet.
And not good.
So that's not good. But when you slide a bill and you're playing against men, you're not playing against boys. Even the worst team in the NFL has grown men tattooing you. He's feeling those bumps and bruises and aches a little bit more than he ever felt at the college level. But, for Thibodeau, this is his second year. And I expected him to be a little bit further along in that defensive scheme. Has not been the case. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on because, in New York, like Philadelphia, we love to magnify things when they're not going right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And look, it'll be – if he doesn't show up tonight and make an impact, they're gonna get crazy, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I like to see it. I like to see the Discord D-Gun when it comes to the Giants. All right. Bigger concern for you. What we've seen thus far from the passing game / Jalen Hurts or the defense and their injuries. Like if you're looking at this game on Monday, and we don't know yet everybody who's going to be playing, but let's assume for a minute that Bradbury and Blankenship are playing. Just for hypothetical purposes that they're playing. What are you worried about more going into the game? Still what they have on defense, or what's happening with the passing offense?
I would say right now more so with the defense, because once frontline guys drop, you're counting on a lot of young, inexperienced players to fill the gap. And we knew that going into this season. And with the shocking volume of injuries that are happening now, and the Eagles have already been hit by that injury bug significantly early on, you just cross your fingers and toes in hopes that some prominent player doesn't drop during the course of the game, especially in the back end of the defense. Again, the offense I'm not concerned about right now because the pieces are there. Outside of Gainwell's rib injuries, obviously they showed against Minnesota that they can get by without having Gainwell in there, especially if Gainwell is not in there this week, then obviously Penny's up again. So you're still three deep. And if when you look at the way Boston Scott and Swift run, the running game's in good hands. It's only a matter of time before Jalen Hurts finds his best buddy, A.J. Brown. They're going to take a few shots. They took a few shots and were successful against Minnesota. One was a 54-yarder, one was a 63-yard touchdown. So they're going to get their shots, especially if they can identify when Tampa Bay is creeping up and trying to, flood the line of scrimmage to control that run game, or to put more pressure on Jalen Hurts and force him to make a decision sooner than he wants. We're going to see how the Eagles counter with that. But as we sit here right now, the Eagles still have enough against this particular team overall. Even if it's a knockdown, drag-out battle, the Eagles' personnel is much better overall than Tampa Bay's personnel, and I expect the Eagles to win this game Monday.
I do too. I look at it. I go into the game thinking Tampa's going to get some. I'm not saying Tampa's offense is going to go crazy, but I think they're going to get some because of the injuries and because of the inexperience, and almost similar to I don't think it's going to look quite as bad as last week where there's miscommunication and guys are wide open. But I believe that Mike Evans, I believe that Chris Godwin, their tight end, are going to do some things. That it is similar in this sense, Derek, that I think this is a very one-dimensional team too. Like I don't think Tampa's a very good running team. I think they could abandon it early if they're not able to have success. The Eagles right now are the number one rush defense in football. Yep. And that's the way Minnesota was last week. They couldn't run it. They didn't try and run it. And then they became one-dimensional. And that's where you can get Baker in some trouble. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. Therefore, with the amount of pass attempts and the issues you have, defensively, I think they're going to score some points, but I don't see any reason. And I know how good Todd Bowles is, but I don't see any reason why the Eagles offense can't bounce back, can't look more two-dimensional as opposed to just being able to run the ball. I just don't see it. I don't think Tampa's secondary is great. They haven't been great against the pass so far. They've been really good against the run. And like we talked about in the first segment, I'm not sure exactly what the game plan is going to be, what they look to take away. They may still continue with we're not going to let the Eagles beat us downfield. We're not going to let Hurts beat us with his legs. It's going to be interesting because if you let the Eagles run all over you, they will. But who knows? Well,
looking at this Eagles pass rush, they've gotten pressure on people and they've generated 6 QB sacks. But if Baker Mayfield is putting the ball up 40, 45 times a game and they're not getting to him, that does not bode well for this defense because they're completing passes downfield and they're controlling the clock and keeping Eagles offense off the field. The best case scenario is to force Baker to throw 45 times a game, have him running for his life, throw balls out of bounds, get him on the turf. Again, so far under Canales, Baker has looked a lot different in terms of consistency the first 2 games. But this Eagles pass rush needs to get home. And we understand that Hassan Reddick is not 100% yet, but you have enough pieces to that equation from Brandon Graham, Barnett, to get home with a little bit more frequency. If they don't, that's not good. It's not good because Tampa Bay has the ball and the Eagles don't. You have to get some turnovers. You have to force Baker to make some mistakes. You have to get some hits on Baker.
Yep.
Not just early in the game, but you got to get hits on him in the second, third, and fourth quarter to make him cough up the football and do some things that he doesn't want to do. You've got to take Baker Mayfield out of a rhythm, especially with Mike Evans being on the receiving end of a lot of these passes.
Yeah, I think the other thing with Baker is, and he's been better at it so far this year, but sometimes he'll challenge like he gets a little Josh Allen in him sometimes, where he'll take guys on, and he'll try and force things. And I'm not completely convinced that he's turned the page on that. Like I think that guy's still there somewhere, but you gotta force him into some mistakes. A big thing is if he's down is where you could see him force some things. But that's going to be a big key to this thing is continue to nullify, Tampa's running attack and then make them one-dimensional. And then I think that's how you can really get to Baker. But if you're asking me, I'm way more concerned about the defense than I am about the Eagles offense. I think the Eagles offense will be okay.
Yes. But we should be, we should be right where we thought we would be with our mindset on this defense. We know it's evolving, and we know they've got some great young through 2 games. I love the fact that the young guys in the trenches are showing up, playing well, controlling the line of scrimmage, not giving them the opposition gaping holes to run through, that aspect of it. But the other components, and especially with Nakobe Dean out, is a big question mark. Now, Nicholas Morrow came in, played well for him. Zach Cunningham played well for him. But that's a 1-game sample. I need to see a lot more of that, and against a team like this, Tampa Bay is basically a one-dimensional team. It's a lot like Minnesota is right now, one-dimensional team. It's a pass-happy team. But look at what happened in that Minnesota game, and by no stretch of the imagination am I saying Baker Mayfield is even close to a Kirk Cousins, in terms of accuracy with the ball. But, I look at Baker Mayfield's tenure as a pro quarterback. His rookie year, he completed 63% of his passes. Then it went down to 59, 62, 60, 57, 63. And right now, at a career high through 2 games, 69%. So he's never evolved in terms of becoming this so-called elite passer in the National Football League. He can be rattled. Granted, he's been sacked a number of times in his career as well. Hasn't played behind the greatest offensive lines, although that Browns offensive line started to become dominant in 2020-21, his third and last year in Cleveland. But by that time, they were done with him and he moved on. You know what, Rob? Sometimes all it takes is the right coordinator to see things, to see kinks in the armor, to see things in your mechanics, your throwing motions, that can turn on a light switch that you didn't have before in terms of a mentor. And like I said yesterday, this offensive coordinator that Tampa Bay has,
Dave Canales,
he did wonders with Russell Wilson in Seattle. And through 2 games, this has been very unlike Baker Mayfield, basically flawless, 70%, almost 70% completion and no interceptions. And he has not been sacked much. That's another big key. He has not been sacked much this year.
It is. Let me throw one more thing in there. Maybe the best thing that happened to him last year was getting released. He ended up, if you remember, he went to the Rams for a couple of weeks. And to his credit, he came in and played pretty well with not knowing the system and saying. But I think maybe being around Sean McVay and having some time to sort of reset a little bit may have really helped him.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, he went from the pressure cooker, with the Browns and everything else that went down there, got away from it for a minute in LA, and it may have helped him, some. Who knows? We'll see. But I think he's an interesting case study, man, of somebody who had high expectations on him. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't. No. I think he was overdrafted too.
Well, you know what? We can say that about a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
When you think about the last 10 years, some of the quarterbacks that have gone in the top 15, top 20, and that haven't panned out.
Yeah.
Say that about a lot of QBs. Maybe he was just in the wrong system for him with the wrong quarterback coach / offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe this is the perfect guy for him. We don't know. But I think if Baker has a good game against the Eagles Monday night, then from a Tampa Bay standpoint, the combination of Baker Mayfield and Dave Canales, the Bucs organization has to feel pretty good about where the quarterback situation is, not just for this season, but possibly for the next few years.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. But let me go back to the offense for a minute. How much do you put on Hurts versus all the other extraneous things, like, like it's the first game of the season. It's a new offensive coordinator. Offensive line maybe hasn't blocked it up as well as we thought for the passing game. How much do you put on Hurts?
I'm not going to say a lot of it, but some of it. I mean, he hasn't looked as smooth in the first 2 games as we thought he would. He's held on to the ball in situations longer than I thought he would. He has missed wide open receivers, and he's honed in on a primary target and tried to get that primary target the ball a little bit more than I thought he would have been able to check down. But again, because schemes are different towards him now, I'm giving him a few games to figure it out. I expect to see that more fluid Jalen Hurts that we saw all of last season. After that initial game against Detroit, and even he put up great numbers against Detroit in that first game. Even though that game was probably his overall worst game of the season, but I expect to see more fluidity in his game, and he doesn't have to throw for 350, 400 yards for me to see that fluidity. I want to see the decision-making process improve and get back to that guy who finished as the runner-up MVP in the league last year. It's a big test for him in terms of settling in and getting back to who we all thought Jalen would be coming out of the gate in the opener of the season.
Yeah, I just think it's a matter of time. I really do. I think it's a matter of time. It's early. I think we're going to look back. I swear to you, I think in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, we're going to look back and say, remember they started kind of slow passing the ball. And I think we're going to look back at it and just say, you know what, lesson learned here early in a season. And the other thing is I think one of the reasons why Jalen was so successful last year was it was his second straight year having the same offensive coordinator.
Yes.
And I know he knows Brian Johnson. I get it, but it is different. It is different, and it's new again. So it's going to take a little while. I don't think it's going to take a long time for them to figure it out and get on the same page, but sometimes it takes a little while.
Well, going off of what you said, by the 6th or 7th game, he better have it figured out and get back to what he was, because that's when he hit the teeth of their schedule. So you better figure it out by then. If not, the public outcry, what it's going to be every week, about Jalen. Paid him all this money, and look, the money's gone to his head. Maybe the money pressures are getting to him, so on and so forth. You've got to figure this thing out, because you got some defenses that are going to be coming after you. And I'm just the Jets and Buffalo alone. Kansas City's defense is going to blitz. We know that's a given. They're going to blitz. They're going to leave their corners on an island with the receivers, and they're going to blitz Jalen Hurts. So you better figure this thing out by game 6 or 7, or we're going to be sitting here talking about the same things again. What's wrong with Jalen? Why is he missing open targets? Why is he holding on to the ball too long? All these things are going to start increasing and intensifying in terms of trying to break down what's wrong with Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and the other thing is you have to also understand in this league, there are brilliant guys scheming it up, and there are brilliant guys executing those schemes on the field. And sometimes it takes a little while. Now, not always the case. And there are certain people that are above everything. Like Patrick Mahomes is an exception to every rule that there is. But there are a lot of quarterbacks, and I'm not even saying this is going to be the case with Jalen this year, who take a mini step back sometimes, and then they figure it out, and they understand what teams are doing to them, and they get what they're seeing. And then once that happens, once the light bulb goes on, then they get back to being who they are. I think right now Jalen's in a feeling out stage. I think he's sort of in the dark, reaching around. All right, I know the wall's here. I know where the lamp is. I'm gonna try and get to the light. I think he's just right now. It's not all the way on like it was last year, and I think we all got spoiled. I mean, let's face it. You had an offense that was a top 10 offense. You had a defense that was a top 10 defense. They took the ball away. They sacked the quarterback. They ran through most teams. You were naive to think it was going to be exactly the same this year.
No, because the schedule is stronger this year.
Yeah.
You're playing a plethora of teams that are playoff-minded, that were playoff teams last year and are still playoff-minded teams. From the Buffaloes, the Kansas City, Dallas twice, Seattle, so on and so forth. You've got teams that are going to be in the playoffs on your schedule. You didn't have a lot of those last year.
No.
But you're still in a conference that's down. most of your stiff competition is coming from AFC teams. If you think about it, outside of Dallas and the 49ers, who really concerns you as far as the NFC opponents? I'm still not worried about Washington. I still need to see more from Washington, even with that gallant comeback they had against Arizona, Denver. Yeah. Even though they had the gallant comeback, I still need to see more. I got to see Washington against better competition.
Because we don't know what Denver is.
No, we don't know what Denver is.
Sean Payton's already talking about dialing back the play calling for Russell Wilson. That's a bad sign.
Yes. You're already 2 games into the season and you're pulling out the SOS on the play calling. Really?
Yeah, not good. Not good. Yeah.
So I don't know. And I don't know what I'm looking at when it comes to Washington, but I do know that with the injuries that the Eagles have endured already in 2 games, and with the heavy hitting games coming up, you got to proceed with caution in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
A lot of areas on this team. What would happen if they lose one of their 2 frontline receivers, which they did not do last year? What happens if they lose Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown for 2 or 3 games because of an injury? Are you comfortable with who receivers number 3 and 4 are right now in the Eagles?
Well, we haven't seen anything from
other than Goddard.
And Quez Watkins. He's another, like when we talk about the injuries, we don't even talk about him.
No,
he injured his hamstring in that game.
And so he's so they can't afford to lose frontline players right now, especially at the skill position. You can't.
No, you're right. And that's they're thin there for sure. There aren't a lot of great options behind the first 2 guys. That's for sure. But I would do, if I'm Nick / Brian Johnson, I'm early trying to get Jalen into a flow with high percentage throws. That's what I'm doing. And I want him to feel good about himself again. Now, look, he hasn't been terrible. I've seen people say in the chat, like, he's been bad. I'm not saying he's been bad, but he hasn't played at the sort of MVP discussion kind of quarterback that we saw last year. It looks like he's just out of rhythm right now, out of sorts, which happens. I mean, it happens in sports. You things happen. You lose a little confidence. And, you're not quite there yet. I think he will get back to it. I really do. And I think he's been okay for the most part, but certainly not what he was last year so far.
Well, see, JM in the chat says it perfectly. And we've been talking about this all week. Hurts is taking unnecessary sacks, looks tentative running, and not finding open receivers. You're right. That's what we've talked about all week long.
Yep.
But the big question is why?
Yeah.
Why is this happening with him? Because even if you have to make in-game adjustments, the good teams make those in-game adjustments and attack what the opposition is trying to take away from them. They alter their game plan. Why hasn't it been so fluid? They did a good job of going to a dominant run game against Minnesota, but still, when Jalen steps back to put it in the air, he's back there looking too much. Especially when you got guys running crossing routes. How many times has he missed the underneath guy and tried to go to the deeper guy to route, and it hasn't been there? Those are the things that are a little bit surprising about Jalen at this stage. Mm-hmm. If he was bringing in an OC, if the Eagles were bringing in an OC from the outside, I say, okay, I understand the jaggedness of what is going on, but he's known Brian Johnson forever. Brian Johnson knows him. Brian Johnson, even though he didn't have the title of OC, has been there from day one with the Nick Sirianni regime. So it should be just a natural transition. We understand Brian Johnson is going to put his own niche on this offense, but it's the same personnel, basically, except for the right tackle and a running back. But it's the same machine for the most part.
It is. It is. All right. When we come back, Derek, we're going to look at positives and negatives. I'll give you an example of each. Jalen Carter would fall into the positive category. That's for sure. Negative category, defense versus the pass. So we'll get into that when we come back. The positives, the negatives, who's been quiet thus far. We'll dig into all kinds of Eagle stuff. 1:30, Coach Crocker from Eastern University, 2 o'clock, our NFL segment. We'll mix in some Phillies coming up a little bit later as well. We'll do all of that when we come back. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis, Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I'm going to tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances can be a very scary proposition. I'm right there in the front of the line. It took me a long time to find the right person, but you don't have to go through that. Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group are the people that you can trust with your finances. Trust me when I tell you that, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business, you need help with your employee benefits. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. I have personally entrusted my IRA, my 401k with Jim, and I have never looked back. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. Give him a call, 610-996-4751. 610-996-4751. You can email him as well, Murray, MURRAY.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody. Appreciate you hanging with us. He's Derek. I'm Rob. We're Sports Take on this Thursday. Yeah. All right. Let's go positives, Derek, because they are 2-0. Let's start there. Hard thing to win in this league. They beat a Patriots team that I don't think is ultimately a playoff team, but is a team that is going to give other teams fits because of their defense and because of their game planning and whatnot.
Yes.
They beat a Vikings team that probably isn't a playoff team either, frankly. But you have to understand the circumstances and sort of the time and place with some of the injuries that they had and the things that they were dealing with. So nonetheless, you've won two this year. And believe me, if you went and talked to the LA Chargers or the Denver Broncos or some of these other teams that are off to these 0-2 starts, they trade places with you in a heartbeat. So let's start with the positives. Jalen Carter looks to have all the earmarks of a guy who probably should have been a top 3 pick, who they ended up getting at 9, who looks pro ready, who appears to not only understand the game, comprehend the game, but have an array of moves where he's ready to contribute right now. And so far, man, he looks like the real deal. He's in the top 4 in pressures in the NFL through 2 weeks, and he just looks awesome. So that's a huge sign.
Everything about him has so far been true. Such an explosive guy off the snap, shoots the gaps before offensive linemen can set their feet to slow him down. And with his quickness, his straight ahead speed, and his strength, it has been a problem in 2 games for the opposition. No question about it. Him pushing back the pocket in the middle of that field forces a quarterback off his landing spot where he wants to set his feet in a rhythm passing offense. And that's what you need. You need a guy who can consistently be a disruptive factor in the middle of a defense, and that's exactly what he's doing. And you look at the volume of snaps he's playing right now for a young guy. Hey, if you're a top 10 pick and you're a young guy and you're being counted on to play, you can play a little bit extra. Now, when you get up there 28, 29 years old, you might play a little bit less based on the wear and tear of your body. But right now, with his youth and athleticism, he's getting after people, man. And I guarantee you, OCs are already looking at this dude trying to find ways to slow him down.
Yep. And then how about his partner? You know, and I know he's in his second year, not in his first year, but Jordan Davis being a guy who's disruptive, you know, in the backfield and already having a sack and a half is nothing short of awesome. I mean, because we came in with a lot of question marks for him. And for him to be playing the way that he's playing so far, and it looks like he was right. He said, I'm going to maintain at 340, but I'm in way better condition. I can be playing at the end of games. You know, this is why they were so attracted to him too, Derek, with that insane combine that he had for that giant frame.
You know, it's funny how the game has changed, Rob. You know, we grew up watching these big edge rushers, big, stout, you know, mobile object edge rushers. And, you know, and the D tackles, in many cases, the edge rushers were bigger. Now we see that the edge rushers have gotten leaner, taller, swifter, and the guys in the middle are now the warthogs in the middle. Their job is a thankless job in terms of clogging the middle. So, you know, you can play games in other areas. But, you know, for a guy as big as him, his agility is off the charts, you know.
Yeah.
And we wonder, you know, when he came out and told the media that, well, you know, I'm still around 340, you're thinking, wait a minute. How are you going to function better than you did last year at 340? So far in 2 games, he's answered that. His quickness is there. His power is there. You know, I've seen in the 2 games, offensive linemen try to double him and can't move him. You know, he stands them straight up, you know, and that's what you want to do. You don't see a lot of this in the stats, but he's standing people up, and he's also, you know, pushing the pocket back. And he's a bigger body. Once he gets his arms up, it takes away throwing lanes for quarterbacks, especially shorter quarterbacks like a Baker Mayfield, a Mac Jones, so on and so forth. So the youth movement in a D tackle position right now is in good hands with this Eagles team. They've got to continue that as the second level, the linebackers and the secondary continue to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest, most quarterbacks will tell you the toughest pass rush is the one that comes right up the middle in their face. That's the most difficult for them. And if you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams playing at the level they're playing, really all 4 in that group are playing great. Trust me, Reddick's going to start getting his sacks. Sweat's going to continue to get his sacks. Brandon Graham's going to get his sacks. Derek Barnett will get sacks if that's the case, if they are that effective there. Young Truth jumps in. We appreciate you, Young Truth. Need to bring back Cravon LeBlanc, a.k.a. Strap, or Bryce Callahan to take the slot. Both of them familiar with the side defense, which y'all big dogs take. All right. Well, I think there's going to be some moves made. I do. Barring somebody going out there and looking great on Monday night and or the next week, I think something's coming. I think a move's coming. Whether it's, excuse me, just grabbing a guy who's available that isn't going to cost you any kind of compensation, or tapping into a team that's got somebody who's established. Either one.
I agree with you 100%, but my goodness, Rob, the pickings are slim, you know, in terms of what you bring in. And sometimes you have to caution yourself. You don't just bring in somebody that can take up valuable practice time, playing time for somebody else, especially in the growth process. But then again, you know, if the Eagles identify the youth movement, especially at certain spots, are not accelerating as quickly as they would hope, you have to do something to kind of plug the gap in whatever the deficiency is, whether it's at the linebacking spot, safety, backup cornerback spot, whatever the case may be. They're going to have to do something, But again, those guys, whoever they bring in, are going to take snaps away from the guys who are trying to learn at an accelerated rate to get more snaps.
Yep.
It's a very difficult balance in terms of deciding what you bring in. See, now when they brought in Ndamukong Suh and Linville Joseph, those guys hit the ground running. They were proven vets. They're playing a D-tackle position. Their responsibilities doesn't change much. I need you to eat up space and push the pocket back, plain and simple. When you start talking about linebackers, safeties, and cornerbacks, their responsibilities are vastly different. There's more involved for those guys. So that's why, you're trying to get younger and better at the same time, but also you're trying to get back to the Super Bowl. And if teams keep attacking the same area in your defense with a good measure of success, you've got to do something to try to slow that down.
Well said. Well said. All right, let's continue on the positive theme here. I think Josh Sweat's looked really good. He had the strip sack last week. He appears to be, where he was last year. I feel great about where he's at right now. He looks good.
I'm a little bit surprised, though, that he's playing almost 72% of the snaps. You look at the drop-off. Brandon Graham's only playing 27. He's playing 72. I thought there would be more of a balance. Derek Barnett is playing 22% of the snaps. I thought there would be a little bit more balance in that regard. Now, when I look at Hassan Reddick, with that thumb, Hassan Reddick is out there 70% of the snaps.
Right.
I thought they would be a little high for him. I thought, even though they were playing Minnesota and New England, that they would give him a little bit more of a rest so he's not doing unnecessary damage to that thumb as it continues to heal. But it's quite obvious that in Sean Desai's defense, he wants Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick out there as much as possible. And Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett are your breathing relievers, so to speak.
Yep.
Because I thought it would be more like a 60-40 split, maybe 55-45. Those numbers are glaring in terms of how much Desai is putting on both of his primary edge rushers.
Yeah, it is. It does seem like a lot. You're right in those terms. Let's jump over to a couple other positives. Devontae Smith's off to a really good start. I don't think any of us are surprised, but he continues his ability to make plays in traffic, Derek, whether that's going up there, two guys like that. The first catch that he made on Thursday night, Jalen underthrew him. He has to kind of come back, jump up, and outmaneuver those guys and still make the play, which you don't see a lot of skinny, sort of smaller guys make. That's usually a DK Metcalf, AJ Brown kind of play, but he's gotten very good at that with the body control and the ability to kind of box guys out. He's looked awesome so far.
I call him the rubber band man. I know people refer to him as skinny Batman. To me, he's the rubber band man. He can contort his body and make these acrobatic catches. When you look at him running at full speed, he doesn't break stride. It's like one fluid motion when he runs. You look at the deep ball he caught for the touchdown. DB didn't come close to catching up to him. And it's not like he had to, fully exert himself. He just kept striding. He makes the acrobatic catches along the sideline. He makes the tough catches. But more importantly, for a guy of his sleight of build, he takes some hellacious shots and he looks you in the eye and says, that's your best shot. Psychologically, he's won that battle against whoever puts the shot on him, a DB or a safety. And as a DB or safety, if I hit the likes of DK Metcalf, AJ Brown with my best shot and they get up, okay, they're bigger than I am. I get it. These dudes are built. But when a little skinny guy like that, you hit him and knock him flat, number one, he's holding on to the ball. And number two, he just gets up at you and look at you like, that's it. That's a psychological win for the receiver in this case.
Yeah.
But, he's earned the right to be emerging in his offense. He's steadily improved his first 2 years. Look at the numbers he put up in his rookie year when he was still feeling his way around the league and learning how to play the pro level. Yep. Just under 1,000 yards to finally surpassing that 1,000-yard mark last year. He had, 7 more catches than A.J. Brown did last year, 95 to 88, and had over 1,100 yards receiving. So he's already shown that, throw me the ball 9 times out of 10, I'll get it.
Absolutely. So he's looked good. And, what else can you say about DeAndre Swift? I mean, the guy ends up being the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Yeah. He goes crazy. They lean on him. And Nick Sirianni said, hey, look, there's no reason we won't continue to lean on him. I think you got to be a little bit more judicious in the amount of touches that he gets. But I understand the circumstance. I mean, you're talking about Kenny Gainwell was already out of the game. Boston Scott got hurt. And it was working. For all those reasons, he got as many handoffs as he's got. So no complaint as far as it goes. But if everybody's healthy, I think a little less in terms of like the between the tackle kind of stuff where you really get hit a lot. But man, he showed you, we already know he can do things in space. Now we know also he can be effective off tackle also.
You talking about Swift?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I agree with Nick. After that performance against Minnesota, okay, we can lean on you. You cannot lean on this man 28 carries a game. He's not Nick Chubb. He's not Derrick Henry. He's a home run hitter. Now, I see you leaning on him to protect the lead going into halftime, lean on him in the fourth quarter to protect the lead and close out a game.
Yep.
But trying to lean on him from start to finish is not a good game plan for him. His body build is just that you got to be concerned about that. You can't see from the running back position. While I think they're in good hands with Boston Scott and Gainwell, he gives them another element, another accelerating element that those two don't have. And especially because of his accomplishments as a pass catcher out of the backfield, you need that also. If you overuse this dude, you're going to wear him down sooner rather than later. I think you need to get Boston Scott a few more touches. And whether it's Gainwell or Penny, you need to get him a few more touches between the tackles to soften up a defense a little bit more so that when you go to a DeAndre Swift and he breaks outside of containment, you're basically leaving defensive personnel gasping with their hands on their knees trying to bring this dude down, because he's also shown you that you're not just going to arm tackle him either.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is demoralizing for a defense.
No question. And look, this one's related to that. The O-line in terms of run blocking has been awesome. They've been absolute. I mean, it was incredible. The holes that were opened up with the center, with the guards, that Swift hit. They got to get their act together from a pass blocking, which we'll talk about in a second. But also on that same theme, the run defense has been the best in football through 2 games.
Yes.
I don't know that like New England should run it better than they've run it so far, but they're not running it well. And the Vikings just made a trade to get Cam Akers because their running game is so porous. But nonetheless, Eagles didn't give them any kind of sniff. They turned them both into one-dimensional teams.
I think part of it too is teams had to abandon the run game, even as stout as the Eagles were against the run, because they were playing catch up.
Yeah.
Especially by the time you get to the second half. When this team's got a double-digit lead, when your opponent has a double-digit lead on you, what do? The quickest way to gain real estate and try to get the ball to the end zone is put it up in the air. Because if you're going to continue with that ground and pound game and it's going nowhere, you're eating up the clock, you're 3 and outs, the clock is still running, and it reduces your chances of trying to get back into the game. So you have to take to the air. What did we see? Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, they started going through the air, finding a measure of success. All of a sudden, the gap is closed in a game that should have been put away. You have to be able to take away a team's heart.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to instill in a team that no matter what you're trying to do, that you're not going to have success today or tonight.
Yep, absolutely.
The Eagles have done that with the run game. Still a huge question mark with the pass game.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. All right, so they're and throw Jake Elliott in there. What the heck? There's for the positives for sure, because there's a good amount of them. The negatives, we've talked about Hurts. What do you make of the offensive line in the pass blocking game? What do you make of what's going on there?
I think in a lot of cases, his defense is overloading, guys shooting the gaps. I know I've seen sporadic comments saying that the offensive line is getting old. Well, 3/5 of that offensive line is still relatively young. Your left tackle, left guard, and your right guard are young. Your center and your right tackle, yes, they're in their 30s, they're Pro Bowlers, but they're smart. You get to this stage of your careers, what you may lose in quickness and speed, you can make up for in terms of technique in terms of knowing little things to help you cheat to win without getting caught. And maybe that's where, Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey are at their positions, but they are still two of the best at what they do.
Right.
So I just think it's a matter of them getting on the same page in terms of line calls, feet setting your feet a certain way. It has been interesting that the pass blocking has been as inconsistent as it has, but how much of that also has been on the quarterback holding the ball? When you're in a rhythm offense and the quarterback's not getting the ball out, the offensive line, I don't care who you are, I don't care how dominant you are, offensive line can only hold up for so long, especially when you have a quarterback. When you're blocking and you can't see behind you, you don't know where he is a lot of times, especially the way Jalen Hurts scrambled, stepped up, and ran last year. You can put a certain percentage on there with the offensive line, but in their heads, if they're saying 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, ball should be gone, all of a sudden you're finding out that your quarterback's still doing this with the ball.
Right.
That's as much on the quarterback as it is the offensive line.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, I'm not going to say they're playing bad. I'm just going to say it's been quiet. So because A.J. Brown has as many catches as Devontae Smith does. But A.J. Brown, 2 games, 11 catches, 108 yards. It's 9.8 yards per catch, no touchdowns. Then you look at Goddard, 2 games, 6 catches, 22 yards. That's 3.7 yards per catch and no touchdowns. It's just been slow. It's been slow for both of these two guys to kind of get going here. And look, everything ties into the other, right? The passing game hasn't been great. The offensive line's blocking maybe hasn't necessarily been great.
Right.
And AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert are at the mercy of those other things, those other entities doing their part.
Well, I'm a little surprised that Goddard has not been more of a viable factor in the offense and hasn't had more yards. And we were talking about this in the show meeting. What is he averaging? Like 2 yards a catch?
3.7. Yeah.
Okay. That's going to change. I'm a little bit surprised it hasn't been more successful coming out of the gate. But again, this is part of, okay, we're not spreading a defense as much as we should. So we know Goddard's input is going to it's going to increase. Now, he's going to have those games. He might have 6 catches for 75 yards, and he may also have 6 catches for 35 yards.
Yep.
It depends on down and distance and how defenses are defending them, who they have on him. His season is going to be up and down like that all year long. But I do think because of his athleticism, he's as sure-handed as any tight end in the league. You have to get him more involved to keep a defense on his heels.
Yeah, I agree. And he's too good for this to continue. That much is for sure. So other than that, I would say, again, I put this in the category of quiet, not bad. No sacks yet for Hassan Reddick. Now, again, you've had other guys get home. Sweat has gotten home. Davis, a sack and a half worth. He's gotten home. But it's been pretty quiet, all things considered, for Hassan Reddick. Keep in mind, he started slowly last year, and then he really, really came on. But right now, Derek, he's got 1 tackle. He has, he has no sacks, no tackles for losses. I'd have to pull up his numbers on hurries and whatnot, but that's kind of where he's at.
I think it's because he's protecting that thumb.
Yeah,
I really do. Just the fact that his presence out there gives a quarterback something else to think about when you look at what he accomplished last year. But I do believe, and Mike Quick, agreed with me the other day. I believe the thumb, it still has an effect on how he attacks, how he extends his arms to punch the shoulder pads of offensive tackles or a tight end if a tight end is trying to block him. I don't think he's quite there yet. And especially when you start having, extending your hand out there and trying to bring people down, you could mess around and do some more damage, which could keep him out even more so. I think we'll see him pick it up. I found it interesting how both Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins, who's not a big scrambler, were able to step up. If you look at the tape, Hassan Reddick is getting pressure from the outside, but the opposing quarterbacks have done a better job of stepping up and sliding away from where he is to buy extended time to throw the football. So I think once Hassan has the ability to grab the pads and move tackles where he wants to shoot a gap or to dip around the edge a little bit more, I I think we'll get back to the Hassan of old. I don't know if we'll see him get 16 sacks,
right?
Because what did we project? 12, 13 for the season?
Yeah, we both had him a little bit down, and some of that was just sharing the wealth with others and whatnot. But yeah, we had him down a little bit from last year.
Yeah. So 12 or 13 sacks is still a great year for any pass rusher. But I think it's going to take a little bit more time, and we know he had surgery on the thumb, but we never really know because the Eagles don't tell you exactly where he fractured or broke it. It depends on where that placement is. In a pin in his thumb helps determine in terms of how quickly it will heal and how much it negates him from being who we expect him to be.
Yeah, I think too. Is he protecting it a little bit? Yeah, maybe. But is he also just hampered by it? Is it as simple as he's not able to do some of the things in terms of grabbing or just jockeying, for position? I think there's a lot of things that come into play with that, Derek. I think we just assume because a guy's out there, he's out on the field, he's fine. No, not necessarily. That's for any position really, but especially that position when you are trying to throw guys off of you and you got your one hand casted and you just can't do what you're accustomed to doing. It can affect your play.
That's huge. Leverage, rush leverage is huge in terms of being successful. And right now he's basically playing one-handed, in a lot of ways. And a smart offensive tackle identifies that and takes advantage of it, pushing him, having the ability to push him where they want him to go. And I think that's the case right now. Hassan Reddick cannot combat on equal playing ground right now with bigger offensive tackles. And I don't care how much you deaden that thing for a game, it still doesn't feel right. And for a guy who needs his hands to control where he wants to go and to get leverage when he's rushing full speed, that's uncomfortable, number one, and something you're thinking about. Yeah. Because even if he did damage to it, you wouldn't be able to feel it until that medication wore off.
Yeah, good point.
In a lot of things. So
yeah, sure, it's not feeling great after that wears off either. Woof. All right, and the other thing is injuries, and you just can't control that. It is what it is, and you hope that they're not as severe as some other teams have are dealing with presently. That's for sure. All right, let's get a timeout. Let's come back. We will talk to Eastern University head football coach Billy Crocker about his team's latest game this past week. Look ahead to this Saturday as well. We'll dig into a lot of stuff with the coach when we come back. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I want to tell you about Pro Action Restoration. If you have a home, you have a business, you have a property, and you go through the pain, the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, or mold damage, you know how trying that can be. Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I went through it. I reached out to them on a Saturday. They got right out. They fixed the problem. They diagnosed what the issue was. They fixed it. They cleaned everything up. The price was right. The crew was professional, clean, you name it, across the board. Pro Action Restoration is licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company. So again, water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Zach, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. And as he does each and every Thursday, we are joined by the head football coach at Eastern University, Mr. Billy Crocker. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Doing well. Doing well. Thank you. So let's dig in a little bit to this past week. You knew going in, you were taking on, a team that's been at the top of your conference in Del Val, and they're a real challenge. And you guys hung, but this was a tough one. So walk us through this, because I could tell talking to you last week, you knew this could be a little bit of a little wake up call maybe for some of the guys.
Absolutely. No, I mean, yeah, they're right now and have been the class of our conference for the last. They haven't lost a conference game in 7 years, which is pretty amazing. So we knew we were going to be, have our hands full physically, especially. I'll tell you what, we came out and started off really well, and the game should have gone to halftime at 12-6, I think. And we kind of gave up a cheap one right before the end of the first half there. To make it 19. And then we kind of battled the third quarter back and forth quite a bit. And we actually had a chance to go in. We had the ball in the red zone, had a third down, and we hit an open receiver and had a chance to go first and goal, and we dropped it. So at that point, that's sort of at the start of the fourth quarter, and where we could have made it a one-score game. And from there, we just kind of felt the wind come out of the sails a little bit at that point. Then they put one in on the next possession, and from there it was kind of like, all right, but I'll tell you what, the kids physically battled. We're not scared, we're not intimidated. It just became a little bit of a mismatch up front, with our offensive line and their defensive line, which was men versus boys a little bit towards the end there. But I was super proud of the way they competed and played. And I think it showed them like, hey, we can, for most of that game, we went toe to toe for what, I think is the best team in the conference.
Hey Coach, when you play a physical team like Del Valley, you're trying to establish some type of balance just to throw them off a little bit. And I saw where you guys only passed for 48 yards. Why was the passing game not as effective as it was?
Number one, I think, again, we struggled a little bit to protect, at times. And I think they went into it and said, the way they're going to be able to have success offensively and beat us is to let their receivers get behind us. So they kind of played off a little bit. And that's where our strength is to get the ball down the field. And then we just didn't have time a little bit for those guys to get downfield and get open the way we needed them to. And, they hit the quarterback, a pretty good number of times at that point. You know what I mean? And then, there were cases in that game where we were trying to keep it close, and we had to give our defense a little bit of a rest, so we were, trying to work a little bit of clock and trying to run the football a little bit, just to get those guys over to the bench at times and get them to have a little bit of a break. Because as you guys know, defense gets a stop. Half of those guys are on special teams. Then you got to get them over, and then all of a sudden, 2 plays later, it's we got to get the punt team to the box. So, so we were just trying to get those guys a little bit of a rest as well with that philosophy.
You mentioned their size,
yeah,
and you got obviously you're starting from scratch here. Is that where you really see it? Like, is it depth? Is it size? Is it both? I mean, what? And certainly, you guys are making unbelievable strides. But is that where you really feel it when you go up against these kind of teams?
Without a doubt, I think. Anytime you have young guys up front on either side of the ball, that's just, because there's a big difference between an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old, 23-year-old. You know what I mean? I look at some of these depth charts and some of them say grad student. I'm like, man, some of my guys haven't turned 18 yet. So that is a huge deal. Then obviously you said the depth, we're going to get to a point here. We're starting a little bit. We're getting some guys nicked up here and there. And it's like, oh boy, here we go. It's who's up next to an extent, you know what I mean? So, but I think the big thing is just these guys, they have confidence, they feel it. They're like, all right, we can compete here. We can do it. You know what I mean? And I think they felt that on Saturday, a couple things here or there, in that third quarter, end of the second quarter, and then that thing is a complete ball game all the way till the finish.
So Coach, you have 3 games under your belt now. What do you like most about your team?
I think again, I think we discussed is they kind of put things to bed, pretty early, I think. And, I think they're inexperienced / they just, they don't care, what I mean? At times they don't know, they're just like, hey, whoever it is, and we're just going to go out and play and do our thing. And, for the first time too, defensively, I thought we tackled pretty poorly. And that was the first time all year. And, so I think if we tackle a little bit better, it would have been better as well. But the other thing I'm starting to see with some of these guys is a little more accountability, a little more ownership of them correcting themselves, them correcting each other in a good way. Whereas we don't have to do it every single time.
I mean, yeah, that's huge. I mean, that they're listening, right? Yeah. Or they're grasping everything that's going on. Yeah. What has surprised you most? I mean, you've been around this for a while, but what has good, bad, and different? What's the thing that you said?
I think two things. I think from a negative standpoint, not negative, but just something we're continuing to get better at is just how much of a different game it is from high school to college in terms of what goes into it. Not necessarily just going out on the field, but what goes into it ahead of time. Throughout the week of practice, they're still getting used to. Okay. And then I think positive wise, what we've been able to do with them schematically and that they've been able to handle has been really impressive to me, both offensive, defensively, and special teams. We're doing things I've done, at my other stops, and they're grasping it, they're getting it, and they're starting to execute it.
I wanted to ask you this last week, but I was away. And, you're a nurturer, you're a teacher, you're a mentor, but also you're a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
And how much have you had to try to rein in? I don't want to use the word frustration because it's an evolving program. It's going to take more than just X amount of games in one season. This is laying the groundwork for what's to come. But when those competitive juices kick in, see, if you're like me, I don't care if I'm playing tiddlywinks. I don't like losing. You know what I mean? But how much have you had to rein in some of those emotions to be that positive factor for these young men?
No, that's a great question. It's something I, wrestle with constantly. And I think you wrestle with that almost no matter where you are. Whether you're, coaching at, in the NFL or Division I or wherever you're coaching is, because you never want to lose your team. You know what I mean? No matter what, adversity you face or what bumps in the road you may come across. I think it's, you see the competitive juices coming out, on Saturday. We're going to win that game. And then when you get back into it, it's like, hey, listen, yeah, we want to win. We want to do this. But these are the things that we're really good out of that game that we need. If we can do these things, eliminate those couple things, we are going to be fine. And those wins are going to come. I guarantee you that. You know what I mean? So I think it's that fine line of, hey, listen, and I always finish is like, hey, listen, being close isn't good enough. You know what I mean? We want to win. That's the bottom line. That's why we're all here. Okay. I said to him the other day too, in the meeting, I said, did you guys think this was going to happen overnight? You know what I mean? Like they were upset on Sunday, and they were upset losing to the best team in the conference, which I'm like, there's other places I've been where you play the best team in the league and you're like, oh, that was awesome. We were within 2 scores. That's great. These kids, they knew they feel they can win and compete with whatever is thrown at them. And so I think you always keep those juices flowing, but then you do bring them back to reality a little bit and say, listen, here's why we didn't. We're close. This is what we need to do to get over that hump.
How different / maybe easier is it on the recruiting trail now that something's established, as opposed to sort of selling them just like a vision or what you think it may be? I mean, you actually, you're playing games now. You got a team now. Yeah. Is it you find it easier? Is it harder? I mean,
I think it's going to be much easier. Again, the timeline of recruiting is different here than other places I've been. Just you're talking to kids now. You're getting to come visit the games, which is awesome. You know what I mean? They kind of see that environment down there. But you're still sort of waiting until, again, a lot of
it could be real late, as opposed to kids who commit really sophomore, junior year somewhere.
Some of the kids you talk to, I know they have pipe dreams of wanting to, get that scholarship, be a Division I player, be a Division II player, even, before they get to us. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that timeline's a little bit, but I think you're 100% right. Now we have things we can show them. I mean, we'll have a highlight video we can show, and they're actually doing construction outside right now. We're going to have a stadium here in a couple months we can show them, nice. when they come visit us. You know what I mean? So a few months too late, but I mean, it'll be here. So
what year will that be for next year?
That'll be for next season.
Oh,
yeah, this will be done in March.
Okay.
Wow.
This will be done in March, with a brand new seating and press box, a brand new scoreboard. So it's
awesome.
A great little setup up here. So
wow. So Coach, you have Lebanon Valley coming up now. How much do you know about them?
We actually went up there, and they were our first JV game last year.
Okay.
We went up last year and played, and that was our first quote unquote unofficial win. We went up there and played them in a JV game, which was a great experience for a lot of our guys. So we got a little familiarity with them. Some of our coaches know their coaches, but they're a solid football team in all 3 phases, very well coached. They're a team that doesn't beat themselves. And that's, again, a nature of looking at their depth chart and seeing juniors and seniors and grad students, on there. They beat a really good Stevenson team 2 weeks ago. So that was a really good win for their program. So we know a decent amount about them, obviously watching their first 3 games. And, but I just feel, I said, if we can go up and do our deal and not beat ourselves, which we've done a couple times, I think, this year, then I think we have a decent shot.
Let's show folks the schedule, Tone, if you could, just to let everybody know what you guys have next, who you're playing, et cetera. So here we are, Coach. So Lebanon Valley, as Derek mentioned, that's a road game.
Yep.
And you'll be at Misericordia after that. But then you're back home at Franklin Field for Albright. 2 weeks later, you get Fairleigh Dickinson at home. Man, it's crazy. Then it's done 2 weeks after that. That's wild.
It's nuts. Yeah.
Do we know yet if the 14th and the 28th are day games, home games? Do we have times on those?
The 14th will be a 7 p.m. kick. That's homecoming.
Okay.
So that'll be a great crowd, like our first game was down there. And then the 28th will be a 1 p.m. kickoff.
Okay, excellent. And everybody can catch the games. AM 990, The Answer. That's the Eastern U flagship station. And sister station is 560 WFIL. And, of course, across the JAKIB platforms as well. So you guys back at it again. Lessons learned, man. That's what it is. That's what you take from losses. It's just let's correct these and move on.
Yep. No, it was great. It's they're getting there. I actually had my old mentor up here on Thursday, a week ago from today. Coach Talley came up on Thursday and
nice.
Visited with us at practice, and he was amazed. He was just like, wow, he's like, it's going to be good. And actually the legendary old Widener head coach, the old Delaware Valley coach, Coach Manlove, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He still helps Del Val, and he came up to me right after the game, and I said, Coach, I don't know if you remember me, and he said, Coach, I remember you when you were with Andy. He goes, look, Coach, let me tell you something. He goes, you're close, and it's going to happen fast. I said, well, Coach, I appreciate that.
That's a great thing to hear.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned a couple of times in our conversation that, when you look at the opponent's roster, they're inundated with 21, 22-year-old grad students. What percentage of your team is freshmen? You may have mentioned that earlier.
We are 75%, 80%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the rest sophomores.
Wow.
Yeah.
What, I just got curious just on that subject. I see guys in like their 7th, 8th year now at the Division I level.
Yeah.
Like how is this happening?
It's funny you say that. I was talking to, Mark Ferrani down the road at Villanova. They're playing Rhode Island this weekend. Their quarterback, I believe, is a 7th year senior. He's a good player. I mean, I remember coaching against him. I haven't been there in 5 years, 6 years. So I'd recommend anyone who continue to do it. Don't be in a rush to join the real world if you don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
You've
been playing that long, you should be a doctor at this point. But yeah, interesting. Hey, do you have the time to check the Eagles out at all? Or are you just the Philadelphia?
You know what? I do.
What do you think?
We do quite a bit, and it's funny. My wife is down. She does every home game. She works for a company that she actually runs the partnership between First Trust National Bank and the Eagles. So she's down there all the time. So we're always watching when we're home and following it big time.
Oh yeah. So what do you think about their start so far?
I think it's a huge. I mean, here's the deal. They're 2-0. I don't think you can ever complain about that. I know people do. I know they want it better. They want it cleaner. You take 2-0 every day of the week. And the good thing is, I think you saw they probably haven't played their best.
Yep.
Right.
And you're 2-0. So I would take that and run with it every day of the week.
I got you.
You know what I mean? If I'm them.
Hey, Coach, this is Philadelphia. What do you expect? What are you expecting here?
Yes. No, that's what keeps it interesting. You know what I mean? So
does keep it interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
but I
a
would
good way
take
to
that
put it.
every day of the week.
All right, Coach. Well, listen, good luck this week.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Hopefully next week when we're chatting with you, we're coming off a win here.
That's what we're hoping. We just got to deal with the rain on Saturday. So.
Oh, yeah. That's it. It could be a little nasty. Yeah. But I think that favors you guys against Lebanon Valley. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I just said that anyway. Yes. Coach, we appreciate it, man. Thanks
I appreciate you guys.
All right,
you got Coach.
Billy Crocker doing a great job there at Easton. Derek, how about that? What did he say? 75, 80% freshman?
Yeah, when you're playing a bunch of 22-year-olds and you got 17-year-old kids, that's a big discrepancy, man. That's me, seriously. You got kids 17, 18 years old, just happy to be in college, happy to put on a football uniform. And you got grizzled veterans on the other side playing against you, man. That's like David versus Goliath in a lot of ways,
Jeez. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that is tough. That does put it in perspective, man. Just very, very young. That's for sure.
And he said the rest are sophomores. So you still got a bunch of kids.
Right. Yeah. They're the grizzled veterans. They're 19 years old. Those guys. Yeah. Unbelievable. All right. Let's mix in some Phillies here because we touched on it and it was a good win yesterday and they won the series over the Braves. They took 2 out of 3. They had a good road trip. All in all, they went 4-2 on the road in St. Louis and Atlanta. They come back starting tonight, Derek. They get 4 games against the Mets, 3 games against the Pirates, 3 games at the Mets. That's all. That's it. They're done a week from Sunday. It's crazy. Yeah. Regular season's over.
Man. Oh, my goodness. You believe the final weekend of September is a little more than a week away?
I know, man. It really is.
October 1st is a week from this Sunday, Rob.
It's amazing. It's amazing how fast it goes. It really
is. And that's when D-Gun's seasonal depression really kicks in.
That's when you go into hibernation. Yeah, we don't see you.
September, I hold on and embrace those few warm rays that trickle through. By October, when you go outside and leaves are all over the yard, and you got to either blow them or rake them, that's when the D-Gun depression starts to kick in.
Well, so my move is the first thing I do is for at least a couple times. I mow the leaves to mulch them in to the grass.
Yep.
It's also my way of being lazy and not wanting to blow the leaves or rake them. So I do that for a while, and then eventually I have to give in, and I would rather cut 10 lawns than rake up leaves.
Now, funny thing is, when you're a kid, it was fun to rake leaves into a big pile because you dive in them and you mess them up.
Yeah.
You get up and rake them again. But now it's like, You just want it over with. Do you have a lot of trees in your front and backyard?
No, well, so we got the one in the front yard removed. So the front is not the problem I get, Derek, is I get it from the neighbors' trees a lot. The wind blows.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and in my back, the neighbor's tree hangs into our yard, and I get so it's not it's not terrible, but it's annoying enough. Let's face it, it's annoying. And here's the problem I have too. This is going to be gross. If you let too many leaves fall, I can't tell.
I know what you're going to say.
Where the dog has done her business.
Yes.
Okay, that's a problem.
All of a sudden, you smear it across the yard.
Yeah, you get a nice little surprise. Yeah, great. So anyway, that's part of the fun.
In that case, I don't rake leaves. I just continue to let the leaves rot and mulch right into the ground. I ain't raking.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh, you don't do anything with them?
Huh?
You don't do anything with your leaves?
I don't get many because I don't have any trees on either side of me. I have the big tree. We had a 30-foot pine tree when we first moved into this house in 2004, and within 4 or 5 years, the windstorms that come here, the aftermaths of the hurricanes that come up from Miami. I went outside one morning. I was going outside, get ready to go to work at NBC, and my wife goes, "Did you see your tree?" I said, "What?" I go outside. My tree's laying across my yard and my neighbor's yard.
Oh my God.
Wind blew it over, and we never replaced the tree. We put flowers and stuff in there and rose bushes, but never replaced the tree. So I don't have to worry about raking leaves at all. I have this one tree that sits right off my driveway. It's a big, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a purple maple type tree, and the leaves fall, but the wind blows a lot of them away. I ain't raking nothing, dude. Now, and what's there, either me or the landscaper just cut them right into it, leave it in the ground.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit. All right,
so you put your hand down there and pull up a handful of. Oh no!
Nothing worse. There's nothing worse. All right, so the Phils win, as I mentioned. Castellanos 2 home runs and the defensive play of the game. He's up to 99 RBIs. He's got 99. Schwarber's got 99. I was looking at their RBI totals.
Yes,
and I'll tell you, they have a lot of guys who have done a really nice job being run producers this year. So Trey Turner's at 75 despite his bad start.
Absolutely.
Castellanos 99, Schwarber 99, 92 for Bohm, 61 for Stott, who's hit down in the order a lot. Real Muto's a disappointing 57, but Harper 66, having missed all the games that he missed. So I'm not worried about this team scoring runs in the playoffs, Derek. I'm worried about the pitching.
Yes,
plain and simple.
I agree. They're going to have to out-hit all their opponents. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Outside of Wheeler, and he's only going to pitch maybe 2 games if you're lucky, depending on the extension of a series. Yep. But for the most part, you can only count on him 1 game. Outside of that, Rob, I'm extremely worried about this pitching staff in a lot of areas, and that includes the guys I thought on the back end would be shut down, like Soto, Kimbrel, Alvarado. Those guys make you hold your breath and cross your fingers when they step to the hill. Alvarado's biggest problem is his control.
Yeah,
he can't find a plate.
Yeah, it's not velocity or some of the other. No, that's all there. But you're right. It's 100% control. I mean, he gets himself in these jams, and all of a sudden it's like what Mitch Williams used to do, and somehow Mitch would wiggle out of this stuff, but Alvarado hasn't been able to wiggle out. I go back to what I said. I think the starting rotation is going to be Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, and it should be Sanchez.
Oh man, Nola in there.
The problem is even greater in the bullpen because there isn't anybody who you feel good, closing, high leverage, any of that. The only thing I could say is you have 10 games left. I think it's 10 games left. You have 10 games left. Hopefully you can get the bullpen guys enough work where they can at least feel good about themselves going into the postseason. That's it.
I agree. When you look at these last 10 games, they should lock down a top wildcard seat in the next few games. But here's the thing. For as bad as the Mets are, the Mets can hit. They can flat out hit.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to get in a lot of high-scoring games with the Mets because the Mets, like the Marlins, are another team that give this team problems, even when they're going bad. And they got to play, 7 of their last 10 against the Mets?
That's right. 4 this series and 3 in the last series there to close it out.
I don't want this going down to the last 2 or 3 games like it did last year, to where it went down to the last 2 games before they even solidified a playoff spot.
Oh,
wrap this thing up. Wrap this. Here's what I want to see him do. Wrap this number one wild card seed up and rest a few guys.
Yep.
A few guys you're going to count on. Rest Nola. Let him sit and watch for a little bit. Forget about Wheeler's last start of the season. Rest him a little bit. Give him some extended rest. Kimbrel. So give these guys a little bit extra rest.
Yeah.
And get them ready for what's to come, because you don't want to be one and done in the playoffs. But because of the way this pitching staff has been, as good as they've been hitting, I got major concerns about them getting past the first opponent. I really do.
I do too. I am frightened of this bullpen. I think the offense is more than capable of getting you a lead, but maintaining and holding on to that lead is a whole different story. And I think that's a major problem here for this team. It really is. There's no other way to put it. And to think any other way, I think you're kidding yourself right now. It doesn't mean they can't get it straightened out, but right now it doesn't look good. There aren't a lot of options. Rob Thompson knows it. I mean, yesterday he used Strom in the 10th inning instead of Anthony Dominguez, which tells you all you need to know about the lack of trust that he has in Dominguez. It's a problem.
And Strom was shaky.
He was.
So I'm like, geez.
That's the thing. Like, I hear people criticize him. I'm like, who are you using? Who would you like to pitch?
Nobody else do.
Yeah.
This is it. That's why I'm surprised. When they brought Lorenzen in, I said, okay, this is the stabilizing force. But since then, it's like he's got a case of Philly pitchingitis. Whatever it is, whatever that disease is running through that clubhouse, he's definitely got a serious dose of it.
Running through his veins, as they say. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. All right, so we'll see how they do with the Mets starting tonight. And the other thing about like locking it up, Derek, is you get a chance to set your rotation up for the playoffs too.
Yes.
That way. So it's big. It's big if they take care of their business. All right, we'll come back. NFL. We'll get a little bit more into the Bears situation. The Vikings make a move. Devontae Adams is none too happy with somebody in the NFL. Chandler Jones latest. Reek Woolen. He now goes by Reek. We'll give you an update on him. Joe Burrow update. A lot of other stuff that we're going to dive into. Doug Peterson on his team's offense. Tons to get to when we come back. Don't go anywhere. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take. All right, let's talk about Flynn Tree Services. Yes, Flynn Tree Services is an experienced, licensed, and insured Pennsylvania tree services company that will trim or remove any unwanted trees off of your property. They offer cost-effective solutions to any tree problem that you may face. So if you have any type of issues with your trees, they're just a quick phone call away, and they service southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, as well as northern Delaware. Keep in mind, we got the time of year where it's good to get your trees evaluated before the heavy weather starts to come in. It's a great time to get it done now. You go to their Facebook or Instagram page for more information or a sampling of their work. Give Flynn Tree Services a call at 610-850-2848, 610-850-2848, or online at flynntreeservices.com. That's flynntreeservices.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Back. Appreciate you hanging out with us. That's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. You okay? What's the matter?
So during our break, I'm catching up on something that caught my eye, and it pertains to Oregon and Colorado's game this weekend.
Okay.
And I saw it running down social media about back during media day. I'm assuming it's July or August. Oregon coach Dan Lanning was asked a very simple question, but a valid question about, hey, your thoughts on Colorado leaving the Pac-12. And he basically smiled and said, you know what? I don't have any reaction. He goes, I don't remember Colorado having an impact on this conference. Do you remember it? I don't remember it. So obviously it's brought up again this week. Do you regret saying what you said? He goes, I don't regret anything. He said, I wasn't talking about Deion's team. I'm talking about Colorado history. Mm-hmm. But, media going to blow this thing up,
Sure.
So, I haven't heard a response from Deion yet. I haven't seen anything where Deion's responded to it. But, it continues. Every week, it's like everybody's taking a shot at Colorado. I mean, I shouldn't say the Oregon coach took a shot at him. His answer, I might have said the same thing. You know what?
Well, the response that I wasn't talking about Deion's team is smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He said, I'm talking about the history of Colorado football in the Pac-12. But now the media is playing it against, what is Deion going to say in response to this? That
right.
kind of thing.
I hear you. No, look, I'm how can you not be excited to see what they do the next 2 weeks, with Oregon and USC, with the level of competition jumping, in a big way. But no, I mean, it's another reason to tune in every Saturday, man. And I think they're 3:30 this week. They get one of the primetime slots. So it's going to be fun.
Colorado doesn't need any motivation other than the fact that they've done what they've done through 3 games, and they're considered 20-point underdogs.
Yeah, that's it. Really, that's all you need. Exactly. And I'm sure that's what Deion's been feeding them all week.
That's all you need. Now, I feel a lot better if Travis Hunter was playing, but the bottom line is they've got enough speed on both sides of the ball. But if Oregon identifies they can run, we know Oregon likes to throw the football, but if they can identify they can run on this Colorado defense, like other teams have already done, which has been Colorado's biggest Achilles heel, not being able to defend the run better.
Right.
It's going to be a great shootout, like 40-35, 38-35, something like that.
Makes sense for sure. All right, let's dig into some NFL stuff, Gunnar. All right, so the Bears, as we mentioned yesterday, had their defensive coordinator resign for health purposes. They had Justin Fields intimate that the coaching hasn't been good enough and then walk it back. So their GM, Ryan Poles, had an impromptu press conference Thursday to address all of this. He said, first and foremost, to hit it straight on, we have adversity right now. Slow start, 0-2, not where you want to be. We've dealt with life issues. We've dealt with injuries, and that's all real, and that's part of what we do. It's part of what we got to deal with. To make it really, really clear, I know the outside noise, but no one in this building is panicking, blah, blah, blah. And he went on to say he doesn't feel like Justin Fields is a finger pointer either. He is not, blaming others. He doesn't feel like he's that guy. I got to tell you, like, there's the Fields vibes are not good right now. He's not playing well. We were waiting to see what he had in the passing attack. He looks hesitant. In his words, he looks robotic. And then he kind of, hinted that it may have been the coaches. I know he walked it back. Here's what I think you're going to see from him this week. He's going to be taking off and running a ton. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but that's what I think we're going to see from him.
Well, so far, I'm surprised he only has 13 rushing attempts in 2 games.
Yeah.
But he has 2 touchdown passes only and 3 interceptions. And he's thrown 40 passes, and he's barely completed 61% of those passes. I think he's still scrambling in terms of trying to understand the game at this level. And maybe there has been inconsistency in trying to coach him up to get him further along than what he was. But the city of Chicago is irate right now. And the young quarterback made a mistake when he stepped to that podium and said, maybe it's coaching. That's all he had to say. So obviously somebody pulled him aside in a hurry and said, ho, there's certain things you don't say. Then he tried to walk it back, as you said. That's part of the learning process also, learning what to say. That's why I keep saying time and time again, here's a young quarterback made a mistake, and a lot of young quarterbacks make these mistakes, but not a Jalen Hurts. He's very, very calculated in what he says. Jalen Hurts is very calculated in terms of not putting himself in a position to where he has to walk back anything. This is part of the growing maturation process of a young quarterback in Chicago, and the city of Chicago is coming down on him. Jalen turned the naysayers around real quick. Think about it. Last year was his second season as a starting quarterback. You had some question marks coming out of his rookie season, even though not his rookie season, but his first season as a starter, even though he got that team 9-8, got them to a playoffs. It was a valuable learning tool. All of a sudden, he just blew up across the national limelight his second season. Yeah. That's not happening with Justin Fields. And Chicago, in a lot of ways, is like Philadelphia. It's a very knowledgeable sports market and a highly critical market as well. And they're raining down negativity on this young man right now. Let's see how he responds to it.
Well, I think that's the other thing. Like, not only are you learning on the field, you're learning off the field. You're learning how to handle yourself. It's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a long time. You just the fact that Eberflus has to take over now the defense because their defensive coordinator stepped aside. He maybe he can't keep a close enough eye on what's happening offensively. It's not a good situation there at all. And like you said, I'm not even going to get into it, but there's a lot of rumors floating around. What's true, what isn't true, whatever. The bottom line is there is just a lot of distractions with that team right now. And we'll see if they're going to be able to, to deal with it because it is part of what goes along with it.
As if losing isn't bad enough, and your young quarterback stepping out of character for a moment and saying something that there's unwritten rules you don't put out there to the general media. And then a story comes out about the coach who stepped down initially, that the FBI raided his home and all this stuff. And it was on the facility, the Bears Hallis Hall practice facility. I have a good friend who I worked with here in Philadelphia and traveled with a lot for years at Eagles games. He works for the Bears. And so he and I were texting back and forth last night and today. And then, of course, it came out from the coach's attorney, his attorney who is in Chicago as well, that it's not true that the FBI was raiding anything, whether it's the coach's home or at the practice facility. But you know how it is with social media, man. You hit the ground running and all of a sudden it takes off like wildfire. So that fire has been put out. It is a little concerning that the coach 2 weeks into a season decides to step down because of health issues. This is a coach that Eberflus endorsed, brought him in here in 2022. And of course, the speculation: was he forced out because the Bears' defense looks terrible? Right. So in speculation more so in that regard, more so than this FBI stuff. But it's under that adage, Rob. When it rains, it pours, and right now there's a monsoon hovering over the Chicago Bears football organization.
Yeah. Yep. Well said. So beyond that, Minkah Fitzpatrick is defending himself for the hit that he laid on Nick Chubb. I didn't view it as a cheap shot. I don't know about you. These guys, they're not allowed to go high, so they go low. He was basically saying, look, I play hard. I'm chippy, I'm edgy, but I'm not a dirty player.
Yeah.
And he loves competing against it. He didn't want to see that happen to anybody. I don't know. Do you view that as a cheap shot?
I didn't view it as a cheap shot. I mean, it was, but from a receiver, receivers don't like to get hit.
Yeah.
And of course, in this case, Devontae had to go to the locker room and be put in concussion protocol. I think that's his frustration more so than anything else. And the frustration, maybe he's not getting the ball as frequently as he wants to. DBs are chippy. Let's face it. They got to do any and everything they can possibly do to try to gain an advantage because the league has made the structure such that it favors the wide receivers. It favors the quarterbacks. It's like you can't touch anybody nowadays on the offensive side of the football. And the frustrations mount for a DB player, especially when you're playing against one of the best of the best. And you try to, soften them up a little bit, mentally, physically, and maybe went a step too far. But I didn't think it was a dirty shot by any stretch.
All right. Devontae Adams thinks the Taylor Rapp is dirty. He hit him. He went helmet to helmet on him. And Adams was asked about it on Wednesday at the hit specifically. It said, was it necessary? Was it unnecessary? Completely, obviously. But certain players play a certain way too. Some people out of control. They fly around. Apparently, this guy, Rapp, has a reputation throughout the league with a lot of the receivers as being a dirty player. He started his career with the Rams, and now he's with the Bills, and he is he's none too well liked. That's for sure among some of his peers. I'll just say that.
Well, if he has consistently been a dirty player, it tells me that's because the referees are not catching him, whatever he's doing, and which allows it. And of course, Rob, you do anything. It's like a kid, man. If a kid steals a piece of candy from the cooked candy jar and you told him not to do it, he looks around, nobody's looking. He's going to keep doing it until you catch him. And that's basically what this is. It's along the same lines of what I said all week long about closely watch how the Tampa Bay secondary plays when they're defending against receivers. Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay for years has gotten away with more clutching and grabbing than any secondary I've seen in recent years. And the same with this thing. Now, this dude is not going to back off until he seriously hurts somebody. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, he's going to stand there and be apologetic for his style of play. It's a psychological ploy that a lot of DBs use, trying to gain an upper head, trying to make receivers think about it and look around more so than focusing on the ball when they run their routes. But it's also a dangerous game he plays because he's going to catch somebody at the wrong time and seriously hurt somebody. Then he's going to get fined and suspended. Then he's going to have to stand there and apologize. I'm not a dirty player. Yeah, you are, because too many receivers have said it, across the board about you. So I put it on the refs first. You got to be I understand you watching 22 different movements when a ball is snapped, but you got to catch this guy and make him pay for it now before he seriously hurts somebody.
Yeah. It's not a coincidence he's involved in another one of these kind of things. Zach Taylor saying, they like where Joe Burrow is right now. Encouraging signs. Derek, I just watched him walk to practice through the parking lot to the field, and he's got a big sleeve on the leg of the calf that's injured. Yeah. He doesn't look like he's moving good to me. I think the Bengals are really playing a dangerous game here. I know they're 0-2, but he doesn't look right. And I don't know I don't think this one ends well.
The SOS is out. They're 0-2. They didn't expect to be 0-2. The difference was last year your quarterback was healthy and you turned it around and won 12 games. Now you're 0-2 with a tough schedule. You're going to play him. In what we're magnified on Joe Burrow now, but other quarterbacks have done it. I can't tell you how many times I saw Aaron Rodgers, come back and play on a short week on a bum ankle and hobble out there and play the game when he might have had extended rest. But because they needed him, you do what you have to do. If Burrow deems he's healthy enough to get out there, if the doctors and the trainers deem that we're just going to wrap this thing up as tight as we can without cutting off circulation and get you out there, we need you out there in the field. And he's just that type of warrior. I mean, players play through injuries all the time, some less effectively than others. But when you look at the drop-off from Joe Burrow, who's the backup is, who's playing the game? Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I guess. But do you sit one and hope you can get the guy the rest of the year, or rather than, I don't know. I think we'll see. I hope everything works out for him. Let me put it that way. I don't.
He's going to be more of a stationary target for sure. But
you're right about that.
His throwing ability, you got to have him out there with those weapons they have.
Oh, for sure. The Vikings still say they believe in Alexander Mattison even after trading for Cam Akers.
No, you don't. No.
Sure you do.
No, you don't.
Sure
No.
Should have never gotten rid of Dalvin Cook, by the way.
Now, and here's why, Rob. You have like 60-something yards, 69 yards rushing in 2 games and only 23 carries. Defenses now identify you as a one-dimensional offense. We can back flood the zones and get more help on Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison.
Yep.
And we can control their run game with only 4 men up in front. You bring in a Cam Akers, that's a different type running back. If you were that confident in Madison, you wouldn't have brought in Cam Akers.
Yeah.
You know, you won't admit it, but those of us on the outside looking in, and even those of us who don't closely watch Minnesota already know you have no running game. Your offensive line is banged up. Your back is not quick enough to hit the hole and make people miss. He's a power back. Madison is a power back.
Yeah.
He's the one that softens up a defense for Dalvin Cook to be that home run hitter. You know, you don't have that home run hitter in your backfield. Cam Akers can be that for you again. But you got to get the offensive line healthy before you even think about running the ball with any efficiency. But I like the fact they didn't have to give up a whole lot to get Cam Akers. I think he's going to help them. But the fact that you've only had 23 carries in 2 games because you played catch up in both games, you got to get balance. In this league, you need more balance.
Yep, no question. A couple of QB updates here, Derek. 2 guys still not practicing. For starters, Bryce Young out of practice again on Thursday. So it looking like it very well could be Andy Dalton starting for the Panthers. So that's not great. He's dealing with an ankle injury. So he's out. And then Anthony Richardson still not back from concussion protocol for the Colts. So both the rookies could miss. If Richardson's out, it'll be Minshew. If Young's out, it'll be Dalton.
In Dalton's case, he might be the spark that Carolina offense and the passing game in particular needs. You know, Young has struggled a little bit more than I'm sure the organization thought he would. And welcome to the world of grown man football, Bryce Young, because when you're only 5'11" and a $180, $185 playing that position, you're going to take your pounding, brother, you know. And those little aches and pain take a little bit longer to heal up than they do in the college ranks. Andy Dalton might give them a spark. Minshew in Shane Steichen's offense might be a spark for that team that they need. He understands he's more well-versed in that offense than Anthony Richardson is because he's been with Shane Steichen longer. You know, and at least Minshew
he played pretty well last week when he jumped in there.
And he's mobile too. He can roll out, he can buy time, he can run if he has to. He's not fast, but he's fast enough to make a defense play a little bit more honest. So your 2 backup quarterbacks may be the spark that these 0-2 teams need.
It'd be interesting. Yeah. Seattle, Carolina gets Seattle. That's going to be a tough spot for them. It's tough spot for any team there. Let me pass this along back to the Eagles here. A.J. Brown speaking said that he and Jalen Hurts are good. The incident caught on camera on Thursday wasn't about targets, he said. It was about something from earlier in the game. I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse, but it wasn't about targets. They got them heated. They've
been together a long time, man. Brothers have differences. You know, you and I are brothers. We argue. We don't
agree with everything. Yep.
It's water under the dam. We got a bigger task to look for. We got, and it may not be as fluid as you want it to be Monday night, but at least we're on the same page.
Yep.
The bottom line is you can have differences of opinion and not be offended one way or the other by it. It's football, man. That's an adrenaline high that many of us will never know about. Things are done, things are said in the heat of a moment, and you move on. You got a bigger picture to worry about here. So I'm good with what Jalen said right after the game, and I'm good with what AJ says today.
Yeah, I think that it's like anything else. I would rather they have that kind of discourse, if you will,
sure,
than be not talking to one another. You know what I mean? Like I'm fine. It'll be. I don't think it's a big deal. Like I said to you when it happened, I'd rather he did it behind closed doors, but it's not a big deal, especially with these two with their history. This is not Donovan and T.O. These two go way back and they're buddies.
Yeah. So it's done. It's squashed. But I tell you what, if AJ's not getting the ball Monday night, the cameras will be honed in on that Eagle sideline. I promise you that.
You are correct there. So a lot of different things going on. Pittsburgh's offensive coordinator is Matt Canada. He's catching a lot of heat, not just from the fans, Derek, but from the national pundits at the way Pittsburgh's offense has looked so far. They're one of a handful of teams that are really struggling to get anything going offensively. Like Pickett doesn't look the same right now. They can't run the ball at all. I mean, they won that game Monday night because their defense not only made plays, they created turnovers and scored. That's how they won that game.
Yep. Yeah. And rightfully so. I expected to see Pickett a little bit further advanced. Yep. If there's one thing, having covered the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, if there's one thing they take pride in, is similar to the Eagles. They like to be stout and physical in the trenches on both sides, offensive line and defensive line. And this offensive line is not living up to expectation right now. Mm-hmm. Did they overestimate and overvalue what they felt they had on that offensive line to the point now they may have to scramble? You might see some new pieces brought in there in the offensive line. But when you have a running back like Najee Harris, who's a banger, and, you saw him break out a couple of times against Cleveland. When you tackle that man in open field, that's making a business decision. They got to fix this now. Luckily, they're 1-1 because they very easily could have been 0-2 coming out of that game.
Oh, for sure. They were very fortunate they won that game, and there were opportunities to pull away a couple times, and they couldn't do it. The defense saved their bacon. They have got to be way better offensive. Yeah, they got some issues. That's for sure.
Granted, they're nicked up at the wide receiver position. I get that, but you still in terms of overall fluidness of your offense, it's got to get 100% better than what you've shown the first couple of games.
Good news for the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he returned to practice for them today. Looks like, barring anything, he's got a toe injury. Barring any setbacks, he should be good to go. But you're talking about a guy who so far 12 catches, 173 yards, a touchdown. He's played 85% of their snaps. They need him. They need it. But they're banged up on their offensive line. Yeah, they Taylor Decker, Big V, and Frank Ragnow. None of those guys are practicing. Now, Ragnow is just a rest day, but the other guys, like Decker's got an ankle and Big V's got a knee.
Absolutely. And that's Big V has become a big man in Detroit on an offensive line. And Detroit likes to get that running game going. And that's going to hurt. Two-fifths of that offensive line is down. And, oh, by the way, who does Detroit play this Sunday? The Atlanta Falcons in Detroit. Mm-hmm. So
Atlanta Falcons who are 2-0.
Yes. So that's going to be huge. And to be down, and Atlanta Falcons, they like to blitz. Falcons, Detroit being down 2/5 of that offensive line, man, that could force Goff to put the ball up in the air a lot more than he wants to.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've been following this since the preseason, but the Chandler Jones saga took another twist yesterday. So the Raiders put him on the non-football injury list. They're concerned for his mental health right now, and a series of bizarre social media posts, and then he pulls them down. Then he posts again. Then threatens he's going to unveil things that he has on them, dirt on the organization. I'll give the Raiders credit, Derek. I think they have really looked at this with his best interest in mind and tried to help him throughout. They have not blasted him. They have not cut him. They're trying to get him help right now. I don't know what's going on with him.
I don't either, but to me, it sounds like a cry for help in some regard in his mental life. And I think Raiders have handled it probably as well with kid gloves as you could, because from what we've seen this summer, you don't know when he might explode. And all of a sudden to say something that could force the Raiders to go into scramble mode, all hands on deck, trying to defend themselves without it becoming a civil war between them and the player. Yeah. Whatever's bothering him, I hope they get this corrected. I hope they get him the help that he needs so that he can get back to normalcy more so than getting back on the football field.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I just hope, he's got a little time. Go. Get the guy some help, and he gets some help himself out. Yeah. Anyway, Tariq, did you know that Tariq Woolen is now Reek?
Oh,
He goes by Reek D Gun.
Hey, look, when you had the kind of rookie season he had, you can call yourself whatever you want. Instead of calling me Derek, my name's Drake from now on.
I thought you were going to go Rick on me. All right.
No,
All right.
no, that's too easy. Now it's funny that periodically through my marriage, my wife she'll yell at Drake, and I've always said, why do you call me Drake? She goes, I don't know, I just like Drake. So she'll yell it out occasionally. That's something you never knew about me.
I like that. Okay,
you
were Drake before Drake.
Yeah,
yes.
She's like, hey Drake,
Is that when you're in trouble? Drake. Are you in trouble when she says Drake?
No, she just yells, hey Drake. No, Quan, there will be no dare. No, that's not happening, Quan. Sorry.
All right. But I bring it up because he's out with a chest injury. That's they're playing the Panthers as we mentioned, but that's a big loss for them. We know that guy was unreal last year.
Woo.
He was phenomenal for them. So
for a fifth-round pick, sixth-round pick.
Yeah.
You talk about finding that. That's one thing about Seattle, man. They find those long, lean defensive backs in the middle of rounds, man.
The Richard Sherman model.
Fifth-round pick.
Yep.
He was 6'5". Look at what he was in his heyday.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Sean Payton, I said this to you earlier. If I'm Denver fan, I'm saying he's looking to now simplify the play calls, the verbiage.
Why?
He's looking to trim it down and not make it as complicated for Russell Wilson. Okay. All right. That's all it is.
How wordy are his plays? Because if you remember, during John Gruden's tenure as a head coach, especially when the team had documentaries on it and stuff like that, people will always talk about how wordy Gruden's play calls were, and they would ISO him calling plays on the sideline. It's like, man, you take up half of the play clock just getting a play in.
Why zebra banana? All that
From him getting it into the quarterback, reiterating it to the offense. Maybe I don't know how wordy his play calling is, but you've had all off season with Russell Wilson, who is a proven vet to get this stuff in. But you know what, Rob? When you're 0-2 and you didn't expect it with a new coach, and everybody thought you would be coming out of the gate like gangbusters, you do anything and everything you can to help your team and to calm the team down. And if part of it is reducing the verbiage of things you're going to do, hey, that's the next phase of what's to come. Could be a lot more coming if they don't start winning.
Yeah, I mean, look, Wilson's numbers aren't terrible. The one thing that stands out to me, he's been sacked 9 times already. That's a big deal, right? Especially for a guy who's got some mobility. He's completing his passes at 68%, pretty good number. He's got 485 yards, solid. Only 7.3 yards per completion, but 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, 108.5 pass rate. Again, not terrible. I would be concerned with what's going on offensive line wise, if the communications, being good, been good or whatever the case may be, as far as that goes. So,
I'm trying to find it now just to verify what I'm thinking here. When Russell, here it is. Okay. Think about this, Ron. We talk about, the volume of sacks that Russell Wilson has taken, but even in his heyday, when he played for a dominant, superior Seattle team. Now, listen to this. He assumed the starting role as a rookie, okay? Now, this is his entire tenure from 2012 through 2021 in Seattle.
All right.
I want you to listen to this, and this is all his sack totals. His rookie year, 33. After that, 44, 42, 45, 41, 43, 51, 48, 47, 33. And then last year in his first year in Denver, 55.
Oh, my God. I forgot about that last year.
So he's been bounced around. And a part of it is Russell scrambles a lot. Sometimes he runs into pursuit, which has cost him. Russell, as strong as his arm is, as athletic as he is, as much of a Houdini as he is, Russell is also known to hold on to the ball a little bit longer.
Yep.
But when your average tenure for as long as you've been in the league is well over 40 in terms of quarterback sacks, he's like the old Joe Burrow. Look at how many times Joe Burrow
That's a good point. Yep.
His young career. Russell's sack total, I'm surprised the man is upright and breathing right now.
Good point. Very good point. Hey, Eagles-wise, good news here, Derek. James Bradbury is suiting up for practice.
I told you. See?
Okay. There you go. So he will be out there. AJ was in a very good mood when discussing, the whole thing with Jalen. He said he's not beefing with Jalen Hurts. He says the incident captured during last week's game was not about targets. It was labeled the interaction as a discussion. Right. Admitted his emotions were high after the game, and he said we're always pushing each other in not a literal sense. You know what I mean? In a good way. So all good as far as that goes.
There you go.
Didn't expect it to be anything major. Yeah. For sure. All right,
See,
Doug.
You people in the media are always trying to drum up stories. You people.
Blaming you, Derek Gunn.
You need to be more like me.
That's right. I'm the more like Drake. Be more like Drake.
Be more like Drake. Thank you.
I agree. Doug Peterson. Now, Jacksonville's offense is not exactly lighting the world on fire with all the talent that they have. And Doug, in one sense, is saying, yeah, it's early, but we don't really have any more excuses. Like, it's time to start showing. Show me the baby, as they say.
Show me the baby.
You know that, yeah. Don't tell me about the childbirth or whatever. Yeah, just show me the baby. But Jacksonville so far, they're 1-1, record-wise. But, Lawrence has been okay. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, not great. 6 sacks, 84 passer rating. Travis Etienne's averaging less than 4 yards per game per rush on the ground. Calvin Ridley's been good, not great. Christian Kirk's been good, not great. Evan Ingram's been good, not great. Overall, just so far for them.
That's shocking to me, and I'm glad Doug said that, dude. And based on the names that you just mentioned, the fact that Trevor Lawrence only has 2 touchdown passes through 2 games and 1 INT, and he's only been sacked 6 times, is a little eye-opening. When you've got the wealth of athleticism and size and speed, Ridley, big receiver. Christian Kirk, smaller, but very fast. Evan Ingram, big tight end. Zay Jones can flat out fly. And they use Etienne coming out of the backfield as well. I'm surprised the passing game has not been more dominant than what it's shown, up to this point, and that they're being inconsistent in terms of how many points. They scored 31 against Indianapolis, but that was a lopsided game, obviously.
Yep.
But only 17 against Kansas City, which is not a dominant defense. Now, defensively, they held Kansas City to 17 points, but they only scored 9 points in that entire game at home against Kansas City.
Yep.
That is, if I'm Doug Peterson, who is known for having creative, explosive offenses, that is a little concerning.
No, I can't be happy about that if I'm Doug. That's for sure. All right. Beyond that, Derek Stingley will not play, could miss several weeks with a hamstring. That was one of the fears with him, Derek, coming out of LSU.
Yeah.
Was he did miss a lot of time. Unbelievably talented. And Houston took him high, and believing in him.
Yep.
So he's going to be out for a minute here. You hate the soft tissue stuff, man. You just, with the calf and the hamstring and the groin, you never know how guys respond to it. So it could be multiple games. That's a shame.
Yeah.
They need him.
D'Amico Ryans needs him out there. Not going to happen. I hope he heals up quickly. The younger you are, the quicker you heal. But that hamstring injury is a tricky one, man.
Oof. Sure is. All right. Warren Sapp told Rich Eisen that in 2024, he's going to be joining Deion's staff.
He said he wants to coach the next generation of great defensive linemen. Shouldn't a head coach have somewhere down the road, maybe after this season, kind of made that announcement? Should you kept that under wraps?
Well, I'm sure I'd have to check. I'm pretty sure he has a defensive line coach. That guy's got to be like, am I out of here? Like, was Warren Sapp headed in? What's going on here?
What's going on here? I'm just trying to keep a job and do the best thing I can possibly do here.
That's where I think Deion maybe made a little call, like, yo, Warren, like, dude, lay low.
Not only that, but you already have a flamboyant, outspoken head coach who has pulled the college football world to Boulder, Colorado, to make it the epicenter of college football right now. Warren Sapp is outspoken and might say some things, and you look at his history, some of the trouble he's gotten fired by NFL Network, things of that nature. Has Warren truly learned his lesson? It seems like all of a sudden everybody wants to be a part of the Colorado, train moving down the tracks right now. I think Warren Sapp as a coach would be a great coach. He's a Hall of Famer, but I'm concerned about the vocal Warren Sapp, number one.
Yeah.
And how that might make Colorado just a little bit uneasy if he goes into there and goes in and does something he shouldn't do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's two things. I'd be worried about him, period, off the field. I'd be worried. You rarely hear a whole lot from college assistants. If you think about it.
Yeah.
How often do you hear from coordinators? Not a ton, or whatever, or just position coaches. Not much. Dion will take most of that airtime, which is fine.
Absolutely.
I don't know that Warren can't help himself, at times, to not say anything.
When I saw the clip yesterday on X/Twitter, I'm looking at some of the comments made underneath it, and one of the probably the best comment made was, Dion is assembling the Avengers and coaches. I'm like, that is the greatest.
That's a great line. Yeah,
he's assembling the Avengers. And coaches. I mean, you got a Hall of Fame head coach, and if it's true what Warren's saying, you got a Hall of Fame D-line coach, or hey, who's to say he can't get a few more Hall of Famers in there?
Oh, listen, the momentum this thing has. Absolutely. How many guys who played with them, played against them, are going to want to jump into this thing, or guys who have coached at the college level their whole lives who are maybe out of a gig right now? Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. And not to mention, think about the recruiting trail. He is going to be getting the primo players now. It's going to be unbelievable.
If I'm Dion, I'm telling the university, you know what? We send out, like a lot of universities, we use a lot of paper in terms of sending out these glossy brochures to potential recruits. Let me just get on with them on a Zoom. I don't even need, let me just talk to them on a Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, why send out the paperwork? Save yourself the postage.
Yep.
Use that money. You know how much thousands and thousands of dollars that is for every university that uses that brochure to send out to recruit potential student athletes to your university. Mm-hmm. If I'm Dion, I'm not leaving my office. And if I have to go visit somebody, I will. But for the most part, I'm visiting with you and your mom and dad right from the comfort of your living room in my office. And we can talk all you need to want to talk about, man. What a good marketing ploy. There's a lot of people that have jumped on this Colorado bandwagon, especially entertainers and just average football fans. But there's still a good faction out there that can't wait to see Colorado lose to shut Dion up. And everybody, obviously the odds makers feel that there's no way Colorado's going to beat Oregon in Eugene. But I will say this. If Colorado goes 1-1 in their next two games, 1-1, Oregon and USC, they're legit. Mm-hmm. There's no question they're legit. Go 1-1. If you split, you lose to USC or you lose to Oregon, okay. If you go 1-1, that's a legit program in terms of being considered heavily to move into the top 10 down the road.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I agree with you. Lastly, you alerted me to this. I don't know what to make of this. So Sports Illustrated, which let me tell you, I subscribed to it for years and years and years and years, and I loved it. I couldn't wait. When it would arrive in the mail, I would be so excited. Okay. I loved it. But we know what's happened with a lot of magazines. It's just things change, unfortunately, in that sense. I don't know that they're doing nearly as well as they were. I don't think they are, but they're starting sports-themed resorts in college towns.
Yes.
Why don't you pick it up from there? You got a little more on this than I do.
And the first one to drop will be in 2025 in Tuscaloosa, which is football heaven, University
That's
of
where
Alabama.
Alabama is. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine they're going to do this in prominent places like Athens, Georgia, Tallahassee, Florida, Columbus, Ohio. The big time. It's great in terms of putting your product in a money-making market, but with the advent of Airbnbs and stuff like that, obviously for a lot of people, it's going to come down. What's your price compared to what I can get in an Airbnb and so on and so forth? From what I saw, it's going to have full service hotel, a vacation club, whatever the heck that is.
Vacation club. Okay.
A vacation club. I don't know what the heck that is. And residential condos. So you can actually buy a property to live on there also, to live near the campus of your desire. Interesting.
I kind of like it, actually. I mean, the only thing I would ask is, are you going to get enough use out of it for the 6 or 7 dates that you get at home?
Yeah.
That's all you get in college football.
Yeah. That's it.
Right. I mean, is that going to maximize your buck? Like, what are you going to do in the summertime? What are you going to do in February? Are people going to come to these places just to be around like Alabama football? I don't know. I don't know.
I think they would use them for like conventions, things of that nature, but still, that's one-time event.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what else do you do in those towns once football is over? You know, and those are decent-sized towns, Athens, Tallahassee. But outside of that, you're right. And SI has not had the subscriptions they've had in years past, just like newspapers.
Right.
You know, nobody reads newspapers anymore. You get all your news online from that publication. Same thing with Sports Illustrated. Same thing with Sports Magazine, ESPN the magazine. You know, everything is online subscriptions now. You don't have to buy the product. So where are they getting the money from?
I don't know. Maybe they're doing, well enough digitally on the digital side of this thing with eyeballs on them. Or I know they do some podcasting and whatnot, but I don't know, Derek. I don't pretend to understand that business model, and what it's all about. I don't.
The only thing I could see, Rob, is because SI has such a prominent and respected name, maybe they got big time investors. You know, there are a lot of big corporations that like to latch on to anything that pertains to sports, especially big time sports. And all of a sudden, SI has $100 million in backers, which is nothing compared to some of these big companies.
Right. Yeah.
I bet you they're calling on a lot of past entities that bought ads in their magazine. I bet you that's what they're doing.
Could be. Yeah, it could be for sure. All right, let's get a timeout, Derek. We'll do birthdays. We're going to do NFL pretenders. Who do you think is real? Who do you think is not? We will dive into that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take. Right back.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We were big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
SOGA now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Back, final segment of the show. That's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. Appreciate you hanging with us. All right, Derek. So I'm going to give you not all the 2-0 teams.
Yes.
But I'm going to give you some of the teams that are 2-0. And you tell me if you think they're real. What I mean by that is they'll get into the playoffs. They'll make a playoff run. Something like that. I don't necessarily mean win the Super Bowl. Okay.
Okay.
Ravens. Do you think they keep it up? You believer?
I look at the next games, home against Indy, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Those are winnable games for them. They could start out 5-0. Then they got Tennessee, Detroit. Those are going to be tough games. But both of them are in Baltimore. The real test for this team is when they have to go Seattle, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Chargers. Those are going to be 4 tough games for them.
They are.
I like what I see from the Ravens defensively. J.K. Dobbins was a huge loss for that team. I'm still seeing Lamar take off and run too much. I'm not going to sit here right now based on what I've seen from Baltimore and say I think they can push Cincinnati for that divisional title, even though they're 2 games up on Cincy right now. I still believe it when they're both at even strength. Cincinnati is a much better team overall. The Ravens' schedule is favorable. I do think they will have a winning season. I'll say that.
I think they're a playoff team, but I don't think they're a deep run playoff team.
Right. Okay. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's where I think they are. I mean, they're good. They're too talented. Lamar can do enough things. Harbaugh's too good a coach. They have enough defensive pieces. They've done more trying to add to the offense. So I think they're good. They're in a tough division, as you mentioned. There's real hard stretches of that schedule. I think they will come back to earth a little bit. So
yeah.
All right. Commanders 2-0.
Next game out of the gate is at home against Buffalo this Sunday. That's going to be the big test.
Yeah.
And then, well, technically, the next 2 games, they go from at home against Buffalo to at the Eagles.
Right.
I think that's when we get a true gauge. I like what I've seen from this Sam Howell. He was the unknown entity. I like what I've seen. He doesn't seem to get rattled. Athletic, can run, good arm. But I still think when you look at the rest of their schedule, especially that stretch when they hit Dallas and Miami and the Rams, and then after that, their last 2 games of the season are against San Francisco and Dallas, back-to-back. Both of those games, to their credit, they're at home. I still think when in the final analysis, Washington is that team that sits right at sea level, and I can't get a gauge on whether I see them at 8-9, 9-8, something like that.
Yeah, I think, but I think that's right. I don't think either one of those records gets you in.
I will say this: if somehow, some way, Washington, if they do finish 10-7, but don't get in the playoffs, that's a big win for them season-wise. Big win.
That's where it's going to be interesting to see what Josh Harris does with Ron Rivera.
But if they finish 10-7,
yeah,
Sam Howell's numbers are better than they are worse. It tells me Eric Bieniemy was the right guy for this team at this time, and they do have potentially the future quarterback of this organization is Sam Howell.
Yep. Before we continue with this, let me give you a couple updates from practice.
Yep.
James Bradbury, Reed Blankenship, Kenneth Gainwell, all practicing. They're all practicing, okay?
There you go.
Bradbury concussion, Reed Blankenship ribs, Kenny Gainwell ribs. Quez Watkins is working out on a side field to start practice. He's dealing with a hamstring. So I don't know what that means, but good news. That's good. I mean, you're getting 2 big pieces back defensively and, more options in your running game. That's encouraging.
I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. Falcons 2-0 as we pick it back up here.
Woo. Falcons next 2 games at Detroit and at home against Jacksonville. Those are 2 huge tests for this team. I like what I saw. I got to see a good piece of that Atlanta Green Bay game. I love their running game. I love how they fly around on defense. You know me. I love Kyle Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
Drake London is really grown. After that, they have Houston, Washington, Tampa Bay, Tennessee, Minnesota, and then Arizona, and then New Orleans, and then the Jets. I think Arizona's going to be legit. I honestly think, looking at their schedule,
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I think Atlanta's going to be legit.
Okay.
I do.
I like
Based
Atlanta.
on the schedule.
Yeah, I've been on them all year, so I'm a big fan. I'm buying them.
I'm still saying they're going to finish second behind New Orleans, though.
Okay. Still no Boston Scott right now.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
So Penny will be up as of now. Well, it's still Thursday. They have a few more days to make that determination. Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, a little more time. See what happens. Saints 2-0. I think you kind of just answered that. You're believing that. You're buying that.
Yep. I'm buying it, man. I look at the Saints schedule. At Green Bay, I think is a tough one for them. That's going to be a tough one. But then you have Tampa Bay, New England, Houston, Jacksonville, Indy, Chicago, Minnesota, Atlanta. And then later in their schedule, they have Carolina, Giants, Rams, Tampa Bay, Atlanta. That's how they close out their season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even though they're having problems offensively right now, the defense is going to hold it down. Alvin Kamara has one more game suspension, and then he's going to come back, and he is lethal both in the running and passing game, which will help things open up tremendously for Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. Yes, I think New Orleans, based on his schedule and in getting Kamara back, I think they're still the cream of the crop of that division.
Okay. Last one, the Bucks. I'm not buying the Bucks at all, but
I'm not buying the Bucks based as well as Baker Mayfield has played. He's still Baker Mayfield, and you got a big test Monday night against the Eagles, and on a short week, you've got to play. And when I say short week, 6 days later, you got to play at New Orleans in back-to-back games.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go Eagles at home, at New Orleans, Detroit at home, Atlanta at home, at Buffalo. I don't see him sustaining that. I really don't.
Okay. You know? I don't either. I think that, look, good start, but I don't think ultimately there's enough there. And I just don't trust Baker to stay consistent like he's been or in the early going here so far. All right, let's do some birthdays. You ready?
Well, let's see here, Mr. Ellis, because there's some really good ones here. All right.
This is a good one. Yeah. All right. Stephen King, one of the most prolific writers we have ever seen. And so many of his works have been adapted to the screen. It's just incredible. But he's 76 today, Stephen King. Fascinating guy. The great Bill Murray. Bill Murray, 73 today. What's your favorite Bill Murray? I got to go Caddyshack, man.
I was going to say, it has to be Caddyshack. It has to be. He's a Cinderella story. One of the best lines ever.
It's the greatest.
It's in a hole.
It's in a hole. Yes. All right. So Jason Derulo, great artist, great musical artist, 34 years old. Leonard Cohen, one of the great composers we have seen, born in 1934. Luke Wilson, the actor, is 52 years old. He's Owen Wilson's brother, old school among his credits. H.G. Wells, 1866, D-Gun. He's dubbed the inventor of science fiction.
One thing I loved about H.G. Wells, and I learned this as a kid, it was a fascinating story. You know, back in the 30s, they would have CBS Radio would have announcers, and they would bring in talent to read books on air, like they were a show, self-contained show. So H.G. Wells wrote the book War of the Worlds.
Yep.
And this happened in 1938.
Okay.
So, Orson Welles, the narrator, great voice for narration. They had a collection of actors and stuff in there. So they're doing War of the Worlds, and even have it sounding like there's a reporter live on scene, and you know what I'm saying? The book
I know exactly where you're going.
The book is based on aliens invading the earth, and this black gas is a poisonous gas. A lot of people around the country listening thought this was real.
They tuned in, didn't know what the setup was, and actually thought it was real, and panic started to the point where they've changed FCC rules when it comes to this stuff. Yeah.
The phones were flooding. Back then, phones were so primitive, they couldn't handle the volume. And they had like mayors and governors calling from different states and cities saying, can you tell these people? I got people panicking here. I believe now this is the one part that's not funny. When I was told younger, and there were people that actually committed suicide because they thought the world had ended.
Oof.
You know, that's how bad it was.
Yeah,
but you had people running through the streets panicking to the point the entire cast, when they were done with our live on air production for CBS Radio, there were so many people in New York outside of the building. The entire cast had to be ushered out a back door.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
Oof, that's wild. All right, Faith Hill, the singer, Tim McGraw, she's married to, is 56 years old. Alfonso Ribeiro, of course, you name it. I mean, Fresh Prince, he does tons of stuff. He's 52 today. Nancy Travis, the actress, is 62. Liam Gallagher from Oasis is 51. Larry Hagman, I Dream of Jeannie, Dallas. He was born in 1931 on this day. Yeah, Who Shot JR? Maggie Grace, the actress, is 40. Jerry Bruckheimer, the great producer, is 80 today. Ethan Cohen, one of the great directors, is 66. Dave Coulier is 64 today. Cheryl Hines is 58 today. Don Felder, who was one of the guitarists from the Beatles or from the Eagles. 1935, Henry Gibson was born. 55 years old is Ricky Lake. 70 is Bob Huggins. 66, Sidney Moncrief, former Buck.
My man.
There you go.
Sidney.
Rob Morrow, the actor, 61. Artis Gilmore, the former big man in the NBA, is 74 today. Rick Mahorn is 65. What else do you have birthdays?
You went so fast, man. Let's see.
We're up against it.
You got Doug Baldwin, former Seattle Seahawks, 35. Greg Jennings, another former Packers, 40. You said Rick Mahorn. John Kitna, 51 today, the former quarterback. Doug Moe, former coach. He was a coach of the Sixers, 92 to 93, is 85 today. Keith Smart with the game-winning shot against Syracuse. He only played one season in the NBA. Everywhere else was overseas. He's 59. He's a coach today. Cecil Fielder, another great Milwaukee player, 60 today. Jimmy Clausen, a former Notre Dame quarterback, is 36. Remember Bill Curtis in CBS Morning?
I love Bill Curtis, man.
He's 83.
Is he really? Wow.
Yeah, Ari Landyke, the Formula One racer, former, is 71. And Christian Serratos from The Walking Dead, she is 33 on this day.
All right. Quickly through movies. 1975, Dog Day Afternoon. 2007, Into the Wild. 2012, The Master. 2012, Good Luck Chuck. 2012, Perks of Being a Wallflower. What else do you have?
Last one, two. 2018, Quincy, the story of Quincy Jones. In 2012, great movie with Clint Eastwood, Trouble with the Curve.
I love that movie. It's a very good. Justin Timberlake is in that. That's a very good movie. All right, we are out of time. I want to thank.
You're off tomorrow.
I'm off tomorrow. Yes, I am.
You're leaving me hanging.
I'm headed to Columbia, South Carolina for 2 days to prepare the weekend.
Are you gonna see a game while you're there?
I'm going to see Carolina, Mississippi State.
You got tickets?
SEC, baby. I'm going.
You got tickets?
We worked out a little parent deal. We worked it out, man. So we're going.
What?
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, I'll have fun. Thank you. Tone, thanks for producing, man. Tone DeShields, excellent job.
You, bro.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. Everybody in the chat, everybody streaming, everybody listening, don't go anywhere. The National Football Show with Dan Cilio is coming your way. Derek and cast and crew will have fun tomorrow. D-Gun, looking forward to hanging back out with you next week. Thank you, my man.
Likewise.
All right. See you.